life, your rhythm, your Africa. Channel Africa. Find it for free on Google Play and the Apple App Store.
It's that time to rise and shine with us, Africa. We are Channel Africa, coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. That's where our studios are. I'm Asanda Beda with Peter Ndoro. We'll be together for the next 3 hours. Before we tell you what's coming up on this Thursday's edition of the show, let's start with the news. Here's Onele Nzinzi. It's 6 o'clock Central African time.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda, and a very good morning to our listeners. The African Union Commission chairperson, Muhammad Ali Yusuf, has expressed concern about the current situation in South Sudan. The security is deteriorating in the East African country after violence broke out in Jonglei State. This has led to the displacement of large numbers of civilians, Kaelisha Kumalo reports.
The African Union boss Mahmoud Ali Yusuf says he's gravely alarmed by reports of inflammatory rhetoric and actions that risk inciting further violence. He has called on all parties to exercise restraint, de-escalate tensions, and comply with a peace agreement. The AU chief has urged South Sudanese stakeholders to place the interest of the people above all other considerations. The AU has reaffirmed its commitment in supporting Juba to achieve long-lasting peace, stability, and reconciliation.
A Ugandan court has released on bail prominent rights activist Sarah Berriet, whose detention was seen by campaign groups as part of a widespread crackdown on dissent ahead of the country's general elections that was held on the 15th of January. Berriet, who heads the Center for Constitutional Governance, a Kampala-based pressure group, was detained on December 30th after questioning the accuracy of the voter register to be used in the poll. She was later charged with offence related to alleged unlawful disclosure of voters' information. The official results of the poll showed long-ruling incumbent Yoweri Museveni securing a 71.6% of the votes. Opposition leader Bobi Wine, who is in hiding and is being sought by the military, has rejected the results. As education authorities in South Africa's Gauteng province work to finalize outstanding learner placements, the impact of the delays is increasingly being felt by learners themselves. The Gauteng Department of Education says it has placed more than 95% of grade 1 and grade 8 learners. However, capacity constraints continue to affect high-pressure districts, including Johannesburg and the east of Johannesburg. Some learners say repeated visits to district offices have yielded little progress, leaving them anxious as teaching and learning continues without them. Lena Nzwaulo Mkwashu remains hopeful of securing a placement closer to home.
I feel sad and lonely and disappointed because the government doesn't help us. It's the fourth time coming here. They tell us the same thing each and every day. So it makes me feel like lonely and but I feel better when I see people around here. So I have hope that I'll get school near me.
The European Union's Foreign Affairs Chief Kaja Kallas has warned the continent needs to increase its defense efforts. She says relations with the US have been shaken by the foundations. Kallas told a defense conference in Brussels that NATO would remain at the bedrock of European security, but it needed to play a greater role within the alliance.
Europe is no longer Washington's primary center of gravity. The shift has been ongoing for a while. It is structural, not temporary. It means that Europe must step up. No great power in history has ever outsourced its survival and survived.
Lastly, wildlife authorities in Thailand have launched an effort to control the wild elephant population by giving them contraceptives. The move comes as herds suffer a shortage of feeding grounds, resulting in conflict with humans. The BBC's Paul Moss reports.
It's an increasing problem in several Asian countries. With more and more land being farmed, elephants lose their traditional habitats and end up invading human settlements, sometimes with fatal results. Thailand's new solution is to track down females and shoot them with darts which inject an animal contraceptive, in the hope this will reduce the population size. Vets say they've tested the contraceptive on captive elephants and that the process is reversible. If the females aren't injected again, they will eventually be able to conceive and give birth.
For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Tsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, CAF imposes sanctions on both the Senegalese as well as the Morocco Football Federations, and Patrick Reed leaves Live Golf to make a PGA Tour return. I'll tell you why at 6:30.
From Africa's broadcast capital to the furthest corners of the globe, this is Rise and Shine, every weekday mornings on Channel Africa.
And that means it's time to rise and shine with us, Africa. And we're together for the next 3 hours. It is Thursday, the 29th of January. It's 5 to Friday. And Peter's favorite, one of Peter's favorite days. My name is Asanda, Beda, of course, with Peter Ndoro. Good morning.
Good morning.
One of your favorite days of the week it is today.
Yes, Jambo, Mangwanani, Bundia, Komishta. It's a good day. It's a good day.
I think you've got about 3, no? Thursday,
yes.
Friday, and then what's the third day that you like?
Saturday.
Well, we are on www.channelafrica.co.za. You can also connect with us via our YouTube, where we live stream. At Channel Africa 1 is our handle there. That's where you'll also find us on the various social media platforms. We're active everywhere, as well as the SABC Plus app via mobile phones. A few things coming up on the show today. One of them will be looking at foot and mouth disease. So we touch a little bit on agriculture, and that's in South Africa, where private farmers are urging the Minister of Agriculture in South Africa, John Steenhuisen, to have a look at maybe changing some of the vaccination rules when it comes to foot and mouth disease, as there are regulations that they feel are restricting them from making sure that the animals do stay safe. It is that season where foot and mouth disease becomes a challenge in the country. What else are we looking at?
Well, so Rwanda and the United Kingdom, when the Conservatives were in power, did a deal that asylum seekers in going to the UK would be sent to Rwanda, and Rwanda would get paid for it. The Conservatives lost the elections, and that whole deal fell apart. Now Rwanda is saying, we want our money. So Rwanda is suing the United Kingdom for $134 million. So we'll be trying to figure out, what does this all mean in terms of the broader questions of border politics and this whole asylum thing, which was controversial from the beginning. So that's coming up in the show as well.
All right. So we're together for the next 3 hours. As we say, get in touch with us with your questions and your views on our social media platforms. At Channel Africa 1 is where you can locate us.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa. Ahoy, matey.
Captain here to help, right, boys?
Set sail with us on a digital voyage like no other. Channel Africa has a treasure trove of awesomeness. That is our website and social media pages.
Tell me, why are you here?
We want you to be part of our adventure.
The winds are changing, Captain. And this time...
Imagine a world where curiosity knows no bounds, where entertainment meets enlightenment, and where every click leads to the African perspective. Visit us on our website, www.channelafrica.co.za, or follow us on Instagram or On X at Channel Africa 1. Go on, like us on Facebook at Channel Africa 1. So, spread the word. Tell a friend that Channel Africa's online variety is what they need on the web. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
A very good morning to you. So it's time now for our daily Africa Roundup. Now each morning, just after the 6 o'clock news, we bring you a concise update on the key developments shaping the continent and the world over that played out in the past 24 hours. And we do this with insights from our team of journalists, analysts and newsmakers, and place the day's stories into context for you and set you up for the news day ahead, helping you stay informed, connected and prepared for the day ahead. All right, let's begin what we call the Africa Roundup with this story from Sudan, where the army there says that it's broken a months-long siege of the southern city of Al-Dalanj by the Rapid Support Forces. As survivors describe heavy casualties and drone and artillery fire and worsening shortages of food and medicine. David Dorr picks up the story.
The siege of Al-Dalanj began shortly after war broke out in April 2023 between Sudan's army and the Rapid Support Forces. It intensified last year after the RSF joined forces with the SPLM-N, a rebel group that controls territory in the region. Tambula Silia says the SPLM-N blocked one side and the RSF the other, and that she and her children were forced to eat leaves and animal skin.
The missiles fell on the houses and killed families, and the drones fell on markets and shops. Many families were lost.
In a statement late on Monday, the Sudanese army said it had been able to open the road to Al-Dalanj, which is located in the South Kordofan region. The victory, if sustained, could signal a momentum shift after several RSF gains late last year.
Former Nigerian Oil Minister Diezani Alison Madueke has gone on trial in the United Kingdom, accused of accepting bribes from industry figures in exchange for access to lucrative oil and gas contracts. Prosecutors say that the alleged benefits included luxury goods and the use of high-end properties. Fiona Jones has more.
Alison Madueke was Minister for Petroleum Resources between 2010 and 2015. She was also briefly the OPEC president, the first woman to hold either role. Alison Madueke is now one of the most high-profile former energy officials to stand trial for alleged corruption. She was charged in 2023 with 5 counts of accepting bribes and a charge of conspiracy to commit bribery. She is standing trial alongside her brother, who is charged with conspiracy to commit bribery, and an oil executive who is charged with bribery. The 3 defendants deny all the charges.
Thousands of residents in Lagos's historic Makoko waterfront community have been left homeless after authorities demolished their stilt houses above the Lagos Lagoon. Families who have lived there for generations say they were given little warning to leave. Diane Toh reports.
Abayomi Meso ran a business transporting goods by boat. He says he's lost his home and his livelihood.
Since they have demolished the whole place, every one of my customers have scattered away, and the business is not going again. I'm just stranded.
Some fled Makoko's narrow waterways with infants and elderly relatives as their wooden homes were pulled down. Makoko has long faced eviction threats. Authorities cite environmental risks, public health concerns, and urban renewal plans. But many residents, often working in fishing, sawmilling and informal trades, say they have nowhere to go. Authorities have not announced any formal resettlement plan for the latest displaced families.
Amazon, the global e-commerce and technology giant, best known for its online marketplace, cloud computing services, and digital streaming platforms, has announced plans to cut 16,000 jobs worldwide, marking its second major round of layoffs in 3 months. The company says the move reflects post-pandemic restructuring and a growing focus on artificial intelligence. Fiona Jones reports.
Reuters reported last week that the layoffs are expected to affect workers in Amazon Web Services, retail, Prime Video and HR departments. Amazon slashed 14,000 white-collar jobs in late October. Executives stressed the need to get rid of excessive bureaucracy and lower the number of managers. But one senior leader said announcing broad reductions every few months is, quote, not the plan. The latest job cuts show how AI is changing corporate workforces. Significant improvements in AI assistance are helping enterprises with duties from admin tasks to complex coding with speed and precision. The 30,000 job cuts represent a small portion of Amazon's almost 1.6 million employees, but nearly 10% of its corporate workforce.
So now, Meta Platforms, the parent company of major social media services, including Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp and YouTube, are facing court this week over claims that their platforms are contributing to youth mental health crises. Now, the case comes as the debate over children's screen time intensifies. Rachel Faber has more.
The first of several cases expected to go to trial this year involving kids' screen time and addiction. Jury selection in the trial kicked off on Tuesday in a California Superior Court in Los Angeles County. The case involves a young adult woman who says she became addicted to the platforms because of their attention-grabbing design, according to the court filings. She alleges the apps fueled her depression and suicidal thoughts and is seeking to hold the companies liable. Her lawsuit is a test case for thousands of other lawsuits seeking damages for social media harms. Meta Platforms and YouTube are defendants, and Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg is expected to take the witness stand. TikTok and Snap were defendants in the trial too, but agreed to settle. As the trial begins, the same tech companies are working to convince critics that their products are safe for teens, as a growing list of countries consider regulations and bans on social media use for kids.
That's the conclusion of the Africa Roundup for this Thursday. We'll do this again tomorrow morning after the 6 a.m. news. So stay tuned for that. But also to stay tuned for right now is we'll be delving into the Central African region of our continent, looking at stories making headlines there. And our colleague Peter Ndoro will be in conversation with our usual analyst for that. On Thursdays, we're joined by Aaron Ngambi, geopolitical analyst, to discuss those stories that you need to know about. So stay with us.
Ritmos e Cultura com Jacob Tivani. Meus ouvintes do Ritmos e Cultura, hoje em linha com uma das grandezas da música moçambicana, porque não? Ele que é um dos kings da Marra Benta, uma bermuda in the building.
É um prazer enorme estar a fazer parte deste programa. Deixe-me só saudar. Boa tarde a todos os ouvintes que me ouvem neste preciso momento. Meu nome é Uma Bermuda, de Alau Fanelo Estarapo, gajo de água da Fanhela é Mabiscato. Eu vou saudar de uma maneira diferente. Ah, tita buia, mwanango, tiduma tifika guiane. Ah, tita buia, mwanango, tiduma tifika guiane. Ani motive lo ababa yena otiva mina haikonama. Ani motive lo anona yena otiva wahimbo. Watwa, cá estou eu, irmão, para conversarmos, para falarmos um pouco de tudo. Estou aqui, estou aberto. Eu estou muito feliz porque é a primeira vez que eu falo nesta rádio, falo para os ouvintes, então estou muito feliz.
Ritmos e Cultura com Jacob Tivani. Todos os domingos, das 20 às 21 horas.
Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
Now to look at some of the stories making headlines in the Central Africa region, from shifting global energy flows to deepening social unrest and upcoming elections. And to help us unpack what all of these developments mean for the people and governments across the region, we're now joined by our regular commentator on a Thursday, and that's a geopolitical analyst, Aaron Ngambi. Hello, Aaron. I hope you're doing well, my brother.
Well, thank you, Peter. Good morning to you and good morning to our viewers and listeners.
Right, so recent reports show that India has purchased around 2 million barrels of crude oil from Angola. This is part of a broader strategy, I believe, to diversify away from Russian supplies. What does that tell us about Angola's role in global energy markets, and how might this shift affect other oil-producing nations in Central Africa?
Well, this is a major shift. If you speak of Angola, we know that Angola is only second largest oil producer in Africa and Sub-Sahara, of course, next to Nigeria. And the quality of the oil, the crude oil that Angola produces, is actually on demand. It's unlike other crude oils from places like Venezuela and other countries. But just like you mentioned, this is a major shift in the attitude with regards to India and its bilateral relations. What India has done here is very surprising because India is part of the BRICS nations, and India has been championing all these other countries to try to work with the BRICS nations, in terms of establishing an alternative from the Western countries as the global South. Therefore, to see that India wants to almost ditch the oil from Russia and be able to deal with Angola is actually good news for Angola, but also at the same time concerning because they're doing this for not really the right reasons. The reason for this is because they want to stay in good books with the United States of America as well as the European Union, and want to avoid any kind of, sanctions or any kind of backlash from the West. And this is the only reason why India is trying to do this. But of course, this comes to an enormous advantage to Angola and other regional players as well.
I know that this is unfair to ask you, but I'm now curious because India is not having the best of relationships with China. Now, are they not going to upset Russia?
Of course, this is expected. I just don't even imagine how the BRICS nations will be able to hold it together and Russia and China to be able to work well with India. It is true that the relations between India and China haven't been the best, even though we've seen attempts by Modi, the Prime Minister of India, as well as Xi Jinping, the President of the People's Republic of China, to have some sort of cordial engagement publicly to display some sort of tolerance for each other. But the two have been at loggerheads for quite some time now. Now it seems that India just wants to get Russia on the wrong side as well, which won't really work well for BRICS because the whole idea for the BRICS nations and the global South was to offer an alternative and to actually try to diversify away from the Western hegemony from the United States and the European Union and be able to have some sort of a unipolar world where the major powers outside of the West can come together. But India seems to be spoiling it for everyone.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting year, one gets a sense. Let's go to Gabon now, where teachers have been on strike for, 6 weeks now, bringing schooling to a near standstill in the country. I believe it's about wages and working conditions. What are the deeper social and economic implications, do you think, of what we're seeing here from this prolonged strike?
Well, remember, Peter, that the administration in Gabon is relatively new. Remember that the current president of Gabon came through the barrel of the gun. He came through a coup d'etat and then quickly transitioned to civilian rule. But even with that, he has tried to make almost immediate decisions that seem to give hope that the country is on a different trajectory after having been over a family dynasty for 5 decades or plus. So the issues to do with the teachers striking now and issues to do with the education system per se has been long-standing. I mean, you're talking about salary arrears and other things for the last 10 years. and basically a wage freeze for these teachers. They've never received any increment. Some of them have not been paid for long periods of time. So this is a problem that this administration has inherited, but to their credit, they have already instituted a fast track system where they're going to settle all the arrears and the salaries that they owe and be able to make sure that the teachers can call off this strike. Nonetheless, they have a problem because two of the union leaders for this strike have been arrested. And so this is also something that calls for negotiation and dialogue between the government and the teachers' unions and the associations.
All right, let's go to Congo Brazzaville, a country that we don't speak about a lot in the media. We know that the WHO has its regional head office for Africa there. But elections have been scheduled for March the 15th this year, 2026. And for a lot of Africans who don't know much about Congo Brazzaville, what is the story in terms of these elections? What are the issues? Who are the players? And is it going to be another African election, or could this be one of those truly democratic processes?
We're hoping that this would be a success story from Africa when it comes to elections. We're hoping that it will probably be a different kind of a story to tell at the end of the day. Now, the elections, like you mentioned, will take place on the 15th of March this year. The only problem that I see so far as a red flag is what the government has put out. The statement that actually the campaign period begins on February 28th and it ends on March 12th, and then after that you have the elections on March 15th. Now, even in places like Uganda, for example, Peter, we did not see a campaign period of just about barely 2 weeks. I think this is a problem. I think that this renders the opposition vulnerable. In Uganda and even other places, you find that the elections, when they took place during the campaign period, they had about 90 days or 3 months or 2 months of campaigns. This at least gives latitude for the opposition to mobilize, to try to find people that can help and participate in that election. But a campaign period of only 2 weeks from the 28th of February to the 12th of March in Congo Brazzaville is very uncomfortable for me, because I don't know how the opposition will be able to maneuver. Of course, the ruling party have state machinery. They can get to all the parts of the country without any problems. But this is a disadvantage for the opposition political parties.
So does this look like Denis Sassou Nguesso continues?
This looks like the incumbent, yes, President Denis might actually go for another term, and I don't know how he would. He has an edge, You look at logistics, you look at the way that the elections have been set up. For example, you hear that there'll be actually two kind of voting system, two kind of election days. The first one, you're going to have the first round of elections, which would be presidential elections, and the Council of Ministers have convened a body that has a national territory, and that will supervise the presidential elections and also the general elections. But on top of that, you're going to have general voting on Sunday on the 15th of March. But prior to that, on the 12th of March, on Thursday, there'll be voting by the security forces. So you have two different dates that are set as election dates for the security forces and for the general public. What does that tell you? That tells you that this can be problematic and can be difficult when it comes to transparency, because who's going to observe and monitor effectively the votes by the security forces, and then you tally that with the general elections on the 15th of March. These are things that, for me, looks like the environment might not be conducive for a free and fair election.
And then very briefly, Pope Leo the 14th visiting Equatorial Guinea. Tell us about that. That's his first trip to Africa, I believe.
Yes, so the Republic of the Equatorial Guinea has confirmed the president and the church met and had a press conference and have confirmed that the Pope will actually be visiting that country very soon. But that is not the only country he'll be going to. We know that he'll also be going to Angola. They've also announced that in Angola. We don't know if there are any other countries on the continent, but this is significant because this will be his first trip to Africa since he became the Pope. So it's a big deal for both the state and also for the Vatican as well.
Fascinating. Aaron, we'll leave it there. Thank you. Always great talking to you. Have a great week ahead, and we'll chat next Thursday.
Thank you for having me, Peter. Have a wonderful day.
That's a geopolitical analyst, Aaron Ngambi, making sense of what's happening in the Central Africa region. And that brings us neatly to 6:30, which means it's time for news headlines with Onele Nsinsi.
ndathokoza kwambiri madaphiri ayi omvera athu tiyambe ndi nkhani iyi mtsogoleri wa dziko lino
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Malawi is appealing for international assistance as severe flooding continues to displace thousands and claim lives across the country. At least 40 people have died, with critical infrastructure damaged and communities cut off, worsening an already fragile humanitarian situation. A Ugandan court has released on bail the prominent rights activist Sarah Beriat, whose detention was seen by campaign groups as part of a widespread crackdown on dissent ahead of the country's general elections that were held on the 15th of January. And thousands of soldiers and police in Venezuela have taken part in a ceremony pledging loyalty to the acting president Delcy Rodriguez, who has assumed leadership in early January after U.S. forces seized her predecessor, Nicolas Maduro. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nsinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Let's check in now with the world of sports. We say good morning to Musibudi Makura for that update.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Asanda. A very good morning from the Sports Desk. So the Confederation of African Football Disciplinary Board has imposed sanctions on the Federation of Senegal as well as the Royal Moroccan Football Federation and certain players and officials for the incidents during the Africa Cup of Nations tournament final just about 2 weeks ago, which violated the CAF disciplinary code. So CAF have decided to suspend Pape Thiaw, who is the head coach of the Senegalese national men's football team, for 5 official CAF matches for his unsporting conduct in violation to the CAF disciplinary code principles of fair play as well as integrity, and also for bringing the game into disrepute. Thiaw was also fined $100,000. Also, CAF have decided to suspend the Senegalese football national team player Iliman Ndiaye for 2 CAF matches for his unsporting behaviour towards the referee. They've also suspended Senegalese national team player Ismaila Sarr for 2 official CAF matches for his unsporting behaviour towards the referee. In addition, the Senegalese Football Federation has been fined $300,000 for the improper conduct of its supporters, which also brought the game into disrepute. At the same time, CAF has also fined the Federation of Senegal $300,000 for unsporting conduct of their players as well as the technical staff in violation to the CAF disciplinary code principles of fair play, loyalty as well as integrity. The unsporting conduct of their players as well as the technical staff also brought the game into disrepute. A further $15,000 for the misconduct of the national team due to 5 of its players having received cautions. Meanwhile, the Federation of the Football of Morocco have have also decided CAF decided to suspend one of their players, Achraf Hakimi, for 2 official CAF matches, with one of these matches being suspended for 1 year from the date of the decision for his unsporting-like behavior in that final. They've also decided to suspend also Ismailia Sabari for 3 official CAF matches for unsporting-like behavior, and also fined a further $100,000. The federation has been fined $200,000 for inappropriate behavior of the stadium's ball boys during the match, and also to fine the federation $100,000 for improper conduct of the national team players as well as the technical staff. Well, the South African national netball team, the Spar Proteas, will host England in the International Netball Challenge Series, a 3-match series starting in Johannesburg today. The series is quite crucial for the Proteas as they fine-tune their preparations for the 2027 Netball World Cup, as well as the regional qualifiers in Kenya and the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, Scotland later on this year. Proteas head into the 2026 International Netball Challenge as African champions following a successful Africa Netball campaign in Lilongwe in Malawi just towards the end of last year. They now have the difficult task of taking on England, who are ranked 4th in the world. Let's hear from coach Jenny van Dijk as she looks ahead to today's first match.
It's important for us to align within the camp and to make sure that all the players understand what we're working towards, what it is that our views is according to what we're playing against, and also how it fits in with our game plan.
Onto some cricket news now. Former South Africa Proteas captain Graham Smith has made a bold claim that the team's chances at the upcoming T20 World Cup in India and Sri Lanka, so the men's national team, will jet out of the country. That's this coming Sunday and begin their World Cup preparation, or rather their campaign, should I say, on the 9th of February against Canada. So Smith, also who captained the South African team in all 3 formats of the game, feels the Proteas can get to yet another final and even win the title if they get their combinations right.
When I look at the team, I think there's certainly, I would believe going to the World Cup that I would have an expectation that they were going to do really well. I think there's lots of firepower, there's match winners. I think it's going to be interesting to see what combinations Shukri and team come up with going into the tournament. I think if they can get those combinations right and some of the bowlers really do click, because our grounds in India can be challenging to defend with the ball, and certainly if the wickets play flat, your bowlers are going to be tested. So I think the bowling combinations are going to be interesting to see, and I think that's certainly I believe that there's enough in that squad to go deep into the tournament.
And finally, in golf news, Patrick Reed has announced that he is leaving the Live Golf Series to make a return to the PGA Tour. The 35-year-old who joined Live Golf in 2022 follows American compatriot Brooks Koepka in departing the lucrative Saudi Arabia-backed series. So Live Golf said in a statement they were not able to come to terms with Patrick Reed on a potential contract extension, but were grateful for everything he contributed during his time with the series. Now, Koepka announced that he was leaving Live Golf in December of 2025 and will return to the PGA Tour at this week's Farmers Insurance Open in Torrey Pines, which tees off later on today. He is able to play after the PGA Tour recently introduced a new returning member program. It allows players who have been away from the PGA Tour to at least 2 years and have also won the Players' Championship or a major between 2022 and 2025 to play again on the series, with the avenue closing on the 2nd of February. However, Reed, who is the 2018 Masters champion, does not meet those criteria, and the rules dictate that he will not be eligible to play on the PGA Tour again until August, a year after his last Live appearance. The time has just gone 6:38 a.m. Central African Time, and concludes your first sporting update this morning on Africa Rise and Shine. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, do remember to send us an email. That's to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Give us a call as well on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Mosibu Di Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Right, coming up shortly, we're going to bring you the business news, but just to take you back a little bit in time, 2012 saw the inauguration of the African Union headquarters in Ethiopia. Yeah, the new headquarters of the AU was officially inaugurated. The $200 million complex was a gift from the Chinese government and replaced the old OAU building, and the skyscraper, which remains the tallest building in the city, serves as a symbol of continental cooperation and a central hub for African diplomacy. Have you ever been to Ethiopia?
No, I'm thinking as you're talking of skyscrapers.
It's quite a place.
No, I'm trying to think if I haven't been to Ethiopia. I almost went. But as you talk about skyscrapers, I was watching this documentary of a guy called Alex Henold, who climbed up a skyscraper in Taiwan, in Taipei. It's 101 floors high.
Wow.
Without any harness.
Just holding on to the
building.
And windows
and no, not even windows. Just the outside of the building.
Wow.
I don't know how he did it, but he did. I was watching it.
Quite scary.
That's like you know, like when you're sitting at the edge of the seat and you just are having a stressful moment, but you still want to watch and see till the end. He made it all the way to the top.
No, I'm too scared to even think about it.
You must look out for that documentary.
So there was controversy around this AU building, though. Some people said there were reports that the Chinese had put in technology in there so that they could listen in. Don't know how true it was in the end, but there you go. Some gifts are not as gifty as they appear on the surface. Business news is next.
Channel Africa is evolving, and so are you. Stay connected wherever you are with our brand new website and mobile app. Stream your favorite shows, catch up on African news, culture, and conversations, all at your fingertips.
Africa is just a tap away.
Your world, your stories, now on the go.
Stay connected wherever you are.
Visit channelafrica.co.za or download the Channel Africa app today. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Right, let's get an African perspective on what's been happening in the world of business as we say good morning to you, Chanduko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. South Africa's economy is gradually showing some positive growth. This came out on day one of the extended Cabinet Lekgotla yesterday at the Sefako Makhatu Presidential Guest House in Pretoria. The two-day gathering is called to discuss plans and priorities for the year, which include, among others, growing the economy and improving local government. President Cyril Ramaphosa and his deputy Paul Mashatile, ministers and their deputies, as well as South African Local Government Association members, are attending the meeting. Minister in the presidency, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, says despite the country's challenges, the economy is on the mend.
We had a presentation from the Minister of Finance on the macroeconomic framework of the country, focused on what are the things that we have noticed last year. For instance, the cost of borrowing for the government of South Africa has reduced drastically. When we started with the budget last year, we started with over 13% cost of borrowing. Today, as we sit, we are at 9%, showing that our fiscal prudence and fiscal management is strengthening. We've seen a year-on-year 2.1% growth on the GDP over the same period. And also we have seen, in terms of the performance of the rand has stabilized. There are those who want to claim that it has stabilized because of the problems in the US. They've stabilized because of the fiscal management that the country is doing.
BMW South Africa's CEO Peter van Bensbergen says the country's automotive industry is not calling for steep hikes in vehicle import duties and instead wants targeted auto policy adjustments to support domestic manufacturing. He was responding to questions on remarks to Parliament by the country's International Trade Commissioner, flagging the gap between South Africa's 25% duty on imported vehicles and the 50% maximum rate allowed by the World Trade Organization. In the same parliamentary sitting, Deputy Trade Minister Zuko Godlimbi told lawmakers that his ministry is reassessing hiking tariffs on imported vehicles. In West Africa, Nigeria is lowering entry costs to its latest oil licensing round and opening it up to independent oversight to ensure transparency. The move comes as Africa's biggest crude producer seeks to boost output and attract new investment. Nigeria launched its delayed 2025 licensing round last month, offering 50 oil and gas blocks, including 15 onshore, 19 shallow water assets, 15 frontier basins, and 1 deep water block. It has signaled the licensing rounds will now be held annually. Amazon has confirmed 16,000 corporate job cuts, completing a plan for around 30,000 since October, while leaving open the possibility of further reductions. It was first reported last week that Amazon was planning a second round of job cuts as part of its broader goal under CEO Andy Jassy, who has been trying to reduce bureaucracy and abandon underperforming. On Tuesday, Amazon said it was closing its remaining bricks and mortar fresh grocery stores and Go markets despite years of efforts, and it says it was dropping its Amazon One biometric payment system, which scans the palm of a customer's hand. Apple is set to report its strongest iPhone sales growth in 4 years today. The growth is driven by robust demand for its premium Pro models as it prepares to roll out artificial intelligence features developed with Google's technology. However, investors will look for comments from the company on how it aims to navigate a global memory chip crunch that is likely to raise its cost and weigh on margins. Sifiso Hlope reports.
The decision to use Alphabet-owned Google's Gemini for revamped Siri and other Apple Intelligence features marks the biggest shift to date in Apple's artificial intelligence strategy. Wall Street has largely welcomed the move, saying it allows Apple to tap into its installed base of more than 2 billion devices without the hefty spending required to develop cutting-edge models. Even without the AI revamp, the technology has not yet been a real driver of smartphone demand. Sales of the latest iPhone 17 series have surged in the final 3 months of 2025, traditionally Apple's strongest quarter of the year.
Morning indicators: $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,398 naira, Botswana 13.05, Kenya 128 shilling 205, Zambia 19 kwacha 69. BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 19, Russia 76 rubles 34, in India 91 rupee 84, China 61 94, South Africa 15 rand 86 cents. $1 is trading at 72 pence to the British pound, 83 to the euro. Commodities: gold is trading at $5,524, platinum at $2,739 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil $69.20 a barrel. That is all for now. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
One of the community leaders in South Africa, Asanda Meledze, says that the poverty-stricken communities are in a mental institution in their homes. She says this because the grants provided by the state are not enough to sustain an individual, let alone a household. Meledze was speaking at the Basic Income Grant about the Basic Income Grant, an urgent case to be the President and National Treasury panel discussion in Johannesburg in the Gauteng province. Now, the discussion is held ahead of the national budget, which is set to take place February 2026. Notando Magudilela has more for us.
The South African government introduced a new form of social security grant when COVID-19 hit our shores. This grant is well known as the 350 grant and has been a main source of income for most vulnerable groups. The Social Relief of Distress grant was meant to assist individuals who lost their jobs due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This grant has since been relied upon by millions of South Africans who continue to struggle with securing a job and persistent poverty levels. This comes as the country grapples with high rates of unemployment. Community leader Basitsana Meledze says when the grant was announced, she and her household welcomed it. However, the grant has not been consistent and poverty continues to prevail in their home and other households in her community.
We are in the mental state, we are in the mental institution in our own households. Sometimes we don't wake up because we are afraid to see more than what is inside. So it's going to change, it's going to be something that is going to change. Even our health, we are not normal. We are sick. We are just wearing a smile just to smile, but deep inside we are broken as a community.
Isabel Frey, Oxfam G20 policy advisor, says the basic income grant only caters for 30% of South African households. However, Frey says the grants are not aligned with the country's cost of living.
None of our grants are aligned with the cost of living, and that is a huge problem. So the social relief of distress, and this was 2023, so I think we're still 350. We've got 3 poverty lines. We've got the food poverty line, which is just food, and it's the cost that WHO, World Health Organization, has costed, is the amount of food just to survive in South Africa. And the SROD was 58% of the food poverty line and 20% of the upper bound poverty line. So less than even half what the upper bound poverty line was, which was 2,600 Rand. Social relief of distress is less than a fifth of that. So people are getting support, but that's not enough support to actually survive.
South African Human Rights Commissioner Nomahlubi Kwenana says government needs to go back to what the Constitution has promised.
What I would say to you is that it becomes important for the state to go back to what the Constitution promised. The Constitution promised protection of its citizens, and I don't want to go to the next part, but it did promise. And that promise, when you go to the different matters that have been into the Constitutional Court that deals with whether social security, dignity, as well as equality, the Constitutional Court again emphasized that the state has that responsibility, so that cannot shy away from it.
Former Statistician General Dr. Bali Lehotla says social security grants are an investment, not a cost.
Social protection is an investment, not a cost. For every 1 rand we spend in unit in UBI, we get 1.78 GDP growth. And that can happen within 36 months. The logic is that direct cash transfers fire up local township and village economies, where the marginal propensity to consume is even highest.
Vern Harris from the Nelson Mandela Foundation says the country's current grant system has allowed people to survive, but people deserve to thrive. In February, Finance Minister Enoch Gotongana will table his national budget speech. Grant dependents say they hope the social relief of distress grant will be transformed into a basic income grant on a permanent basis at a higher monetary level, adding that this will go a long way in changing the socio-economic conditions in their communities. Notando Makutulela in Johannesburg.
Get in touch with us at Channel Africa 1 is our handle across the various social media platforms with your questions and comments. They are welcomed.
Este é o Caleidoscópio de Canal África, com Remo Samo e João Yabalá.
A situação do ativista angolano Serrote José de Oliveira, preso desde julho, tem gerado grande preocupação internacional. Conhecido como General Nila e presidente do movimento União Nacional para a Total Revolução de Angola, Serrote iniciou uma greve de fome em protesto contra a sua prisão, que considera arbitrária. De acordo com a Amnistia Internacional, o estado de saúde do ativista está a deteriorar-se rapidamente devido à falta de acesso a cuidados médicos adequados. Para discutir o impacto deste caso e o estado da liberdade política em Angola, vamos conversar com Dito Dale, ativista e defensor dos direitos humanos.
Nós estamos diante de uma clara estratégia de aniquilar o jovem, porque quando uma pessoa está doente, deve ser assistido. Ao não proporcionar esses cuidados médicos, o que é que o regime quer? Não quer que esse jovem saia livre e com vida da prisão, quer matá-lo.
De segunda a sexta-feira, das 20 às 21 horas locais, este é o Caleidoscópio do Canal África.
Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
South African farmers and farming lobby groups have issued a formal legal demand to the country's Minister of Agriculture, John Steenhuisen, to confirm whether farmers may procure and administer foot and mouth disease or FMD vaccines privately or to cite the exact legal clauses blocking them from doing so. The group, which comprises of Sakeliga, the Southern African Agri-Initiative, or SAI, the Free State Agriculture, argue that the state's centralized control over the vaccination process is failing and that the restrictions preventing private farmers from protecting their own herds are unlawful and irrational. To hear more, we're joined on the line now by Francois Wilken, the president of Free State Agriculture. Francois, a good morning to you and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity.
So let's start maybe before we delve deeper into the issue with the Minister of Agriculture to differentiate between the human foot and mouth disease, for which there is no broad vaccine. That's not what we're talking about today, but the one that affects animals is very crucial that they get their vaccines. But which animals are affected by FMD?
It's actually all split hoof animals like cattle, sheep, pigs, and goats. I must stress it that the foot and mouth for animals is not transferable to people, and it's not there's no anything that can make that people can acquire that. And also the meat and milk from infected animals are safe for human consumption.
We understand also that this is the season that foot and mouth disease becomes a challenge for the country. So how has the industry, as particularly your section, been affected?
Yes, we must say that we were a foot and mouth free country for many, many years. And in 2019, it came out of the red zone, as we call it, in the eastern parts of Mpumalanga and the northern parts of Natal. And in 2021, there was an outbreak, the first outbreak in the Free State. And although it's a state-controlled disease, we feel that the state at this moment are not capable of handling the situation very well. So what we do, we ask the minister to let the private sector acquire their own vaccines and within the system can vaccinate their cattle. And all we ask for the minister on which laws does he prohibit the farmers to do that, because the protocols and the rules that were written for a country foot and mouth free, and now there's a big outbreak, and that is the problem. They can't control it because in my region, the state vet asked the farmers can't they help her with a vehicle and fuel to do a job. So the state hasn't got the capacity to do that.
So the key issues are around the legalities.
Yes, but because we are prohibited at the moment, so they only say to us, but it's the law. So we ask them, give us the laws under which you prohibit us to do that ourselves.
You've emphasized that the minister needs to give forthright and direct answers to your questions and your concerns to make clear whether there's an actual dispute. Currently, what is the status then, would you say, between the Ministry of Agriculture, Sakeliga, SAI and Free State Agriculture?
We are waiting here till this afternoon, 5 o'clock, to respond to our questions. He replied in the media on some of the things we asked him, but we want the legal letter from him saying what we actually asked him.
Botswana on Wednesday announced suspected cases of foot and mouth disease in its northeast district, prompting immediate animal movement restrictions and a swift government response there. Now, in the case of South Africa, we still rely on the Botswana Vaccine Institute, or BVI, for FMD vaccines, even though there were plans last year to cut the imports. To what extent can individual farmers legally bypass the state gatekeeping, all these red tapes, to procure vaccines directly from BVI?
We actually want the Argentinian vaccines because it's better. It's all oil-based and it's only one vaccine, one shot, and the problem may be solved. And then yearly after that, that's what we ask the minister. Why can't we acquire that ourselves? We don't want to do it outside of the system and the control of that. We just want to acquire that ourselves because we are afraid of we know what happened in COVID, how many illegal things happened in COVID. So we just want to acquire that ourselves. The state can't control it because they haven't got the capacity to do that.
If the minister fails to respond by the end of the week, what will your next step be?
Now, then we will declare a dispute, and maybe we can get a court order for him to respond to what we ask him.
The leftover vaccines from veterinarians, state veterinarians, could that be a compromise to be given to private farmers?
There are no vaccines in the hands of the state veterinarians. So we need about, they said there are 2 million cattle vaccinated. We've got a stock of 14 million. And at the state's pace, they are saying they are going to do it. It will take us 14 months to vaccinate the herd. And at that stage, the spread will be out of control.
Right, so we hope for a speedy response and a way forward to this situation. Thank you so much, Francois. Francois Wilken is president of the Free State Agriculture in South Africa, calling on the Minister of Agriculture to urgently address foot and mouth disease vaccination legalities. Let's get into the news now. It's 7 o'clock as we enter the second hour of Rise and Shine, and we get that update from Onel Nzinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Malawi is appealing for international assistance as severe flooding continues to displace thousands and claim lives across the country. At least 40 people have died, with critical infrastructure damaged and communities cut off, worsening the already fragile humanitarian situation in the country. The flooding also caused massive damage to infrastructure, including roads, which have cut off from the country. While acknowledging the amount of support already channeled to the country, the Commissioner for Dodma, Wilson Muleni, said the number of flood victims continues to rise, raising the need of people affected. The flooding comes at a time when the country is going through a critical food shortage that's been caused by El Nino-induced weather phenomenon, which has left more than 4.5 million people in need of food aid. A Ugandan court has released on bail rights activist Sarah Beriet, whose detention was seen by campaign groups as part of a widespread crackdown on dissent ahead of the country's general election that was held on the 15th of January. Beriet, who heads the Center for Constitutional Governance, a Kampala-based pressure group, was detained on December 30 after questioning the accuracy of the voter register to be used in the poll. She was later charged with offences related to alleged unlawful disclosure of voter information. The official results of the poll showed long-running incumbent Yoweri Museveni securing a 71.6% of the votes. Opposition leader Bobi Wine, who is in hiding and is being sought by the military, has rejected the results. The African Union Commission chairperson Muhammad Ali Yusuf has expressed concern about the current situation in South Sudan. The security is deteriorating in the East African country after violence broke out in Jonglei State. This has led to the displacement of large number of civilians, Kailehle Kumalo reports.
The African Union boss Mahmoud Ali Yusuf says he's gravely alarmed by reports of inflammatory rhetoric and actions that risk inciting further violence. He has called on all parties to exercise restraint, de-escalate tensions and comply with a peace agreement. The AU chief has urged South Sudanese stakeholders to place the interest of the people above all other considerations. The AU has reaffirmed its commitment in supporting Juba to achieve long-lasting peace, stability and reconciliation.
The head of South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal Province Priority Crime Investigations Unit, the Hawks, Major General Lesitja Sinona, has told the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry that he did not open documents sent to him by a controversial businessman, Vusimuzi Matlala, including the identity of President Cyril Ramaphosa. Evidence before the Commission from Witness X states that Matlala sent General Sinona 3 different ID numbers allegedly belonging to the president. The Commission is probing allegations of criminality, corruption and political interference in the police and criminal justice system. Responding to evidence, leader advocate Adila Hassim Sinona says he doesn't know. He didn't ask Matlala why he sent him the documents.
Donald Trump says that this is all about obtaining a nuclear agreement. Remember, in 2015, there was a nuclear accord which had been negotiated by the Obama administration. Instead, Donald Trump came into office.
We do apologize for playing the wrong sound there. And lastly, thousands of soldiers and police in Venezuela have taken part in the ceremony pledging loyalty to the acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, who assumed leadership in early January after U.S. forces seized her predecessor, Nicolas Maduro. She said she was open to dialogue with the opposition, but warned those who sought to damage the country to stay away.
A very clear message for Venezuela's extremists and their international connections. Through the Democratic Coexistence and Peace Programme, we've opened a space for political dialogue. Let all those who truly love Venezuela come, but those who seek to perpetrate harm and aggression against the people of Venezuela should stay in Washington, because they will not come here to damage the peace and tranquility of the Republic.
For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I am Oneli Tsinsi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, CAF imposes heavy fines on the Senegalese and Morocco football federations while it's semi-final day at the Australian Open. Details coming up at 7:30.
Wherever the hour finds you, across the world, here's your morning African lens on the world's leading story. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
Okay, so it's the second hour of Rise and Shine. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much indeed for tuning in and starting your weekdays with the best current affairs program in the continent. And you're listening on channelafrica.co.za, and you can also catch us on social media. Just type in Channel Africa on your favorite social media platform. And you can also get us on your mobile app store. Go in there, look for channel SABC Plus, and then look for Channel Africa, and of course Rise and Shine. I'm Peter Ndoro, and I'm with Asanda Beda. Good morning.
Good morning, Peter Ndoro.
Yeah, happy second hour.
Happy second hour on this Thursday. What I'm talking about in this hour, actually, we go to Malawi. They're battling floods in the country. It was South Africa with Mpumalanga and Limpopo provinces. Then we were speaking about Mozambique. Now Malawi is the latest to be battling this weather phenomenon, and they are appealing for international assistance as hundreds or thousands rather are displaced and lives are being claimed across the country. At least 40 people, the figures are right now, who have died.
And I'm going to be focusing on a spat between Rwanda and the United Kingdom to the amount of $134 million. Find out why Rwanda wants its money.
Bring back the money.
África. Conhece o Ntivani?
Claro que sou eu.
Ntivani é o amante da música de corpo e alma.
Eu amo música africana.
Ele aprecia todos os tipos de melodias e passa os seus dias a ouvir a Channel África. Adivinha só, a Channel África quer ajudar o Tivani e os amantes da música em todo o lado a descobrir ainda mais música incrível. Por isso, a Channel África está a convocar artistas africanos a submeterem as suas músicas. Músicos, lembrem-se de nos dar todas as informações relevantes no music@channelafrica.co.za. As submissões são a vossa oportunidade de ser ouvidos, mas não garantem inclusão na lista. Todas as submissões serão cuidadosamente analisadas para verificar se cumprem os requisitos da nossa estação. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Rwanda has taken the United Kingdom to the international arbitration, demanding £100 million in compensation. That's about $134, and this due to a cancelled, controversial asylum agreement between the two countries. The deal was signed in 2022 and designed to see some asylum seekers arriving in the UK relocated to Rwanda for processing and settlement in exchange for British funding to support accommodation and integration. But the policy became mired in legal challenges. Political change in Britain also saw international criticism, and only a small number of people were ever transferred before the agreement was actually formally scrapped. Rwanda now argues that it's upheld its side of the deal and is seeking payment for costs already incurred. The case raises broader questions, though, about the future of migration partnerships between Europe and African states, the balance of power in such agreements, and what this dispute means for countries hosting displaced people across the continent. Well, to help us make sense of the legal, political, and regional implications, we're now joined by Professor Lauren Landau, who's the director of the African Center for Migration and Society at the University of the Witwatersrand in South Africa. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Prof, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, and congratulations on your new show.
Thank you very, very much indeed. So Rwanda is demanding £100 million, $134 million after the UK cancelled this deal. At its core, what's the dispute really about? Is it money? Is it political credibility? Or control of how migration is managed?
Well, I think all of those things come into play. Clearly, Rwanda had actually invested considerably in building facilities and in preparing themselves to receive what was supposed to be quite a large number of people from the United Kingdom. So there were real costs. But I think the broader issue here is that, and there's a sort of irony of Rwanda going to a court, to arbitration, for something that itself is quite dodgy and quite legally suspect. And it's exposing in a very real, very visible way, the kind of strange and amoral and humane kind of global systems of migration management that Europe, the United States, other wealthy countries are trying to build across the world. And so this is exposing something, I think, in a very real way. And the UK, I believe, will need to ultimately pay.
I mean, £100 million is nothing to the United Kingdom. So it's a lot about principles, I guess, for them. But what does it tell us about the relationship between the two countries now?
Yeah, I mean, the overall money is really not an issue. I think it's about who gets to call the shots here. And what we're seeing is something very much aligned with what Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, had suggested, was that this is a new era in which middle powers or lower income countries like Rwanda or many African countries are now where they can start to assert their power. The United States, the United Kingdom, Europe is lost some of its control. And these countries, and Rwanda is very ambitious in this way under Paul Kagame, is asserting its right to say, look, you've asked us to do this, we've done it, it's now ours. And I think they also want to expose to the British people what this deal was all about and what was underlying it. So yeah, it's about global politics. Rwanda, of course, wants the money back, but they want it on principle, and they want to use the courts now not only to assert themselves, but to try to assert their authority over a European country. And there's an irony there. There's a kind of post-colonial political statement there, and of course, there is money still on the table.
Where does it place us in terms of this idea that rich nations can buy away their moral obligations, in fact, international law obligations, just by paying poorer countries?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I see my camera has frozen, and I'm sorry about that. But I think that there's something. While Rwanda here is asserting this, we do still see that countries, the United States, has made deals with Ghana, it's made deals with South Sudan, it's made deals nearby with Eswatini. Those things are still going ahead. And I think what this deal helps to do is expose some of this architecture and maybe a chance what we call it's a form of migration diplomacy where European American dependence on Africa to do its dirty work is now being exposed, and the African countries are asking for a bit more.
Do you see African countries changing their position in terms of how they deal with this migration issue going forward?
I think African countries are going to be empowered by this. It's very clear that Europe, that the United States, that England can't deal with its immigration issues on its own. That they've come to rely on African countries, and African countries will start to realize that gives them power.
And what about the whole ethics of relocating people to other countries? Asylum seekers are supposed to be taken care of in the countries where they first arrive. What happens to all of that? Does it just become a nice to have, but not anything needs to take seriously?
I think it's very clear that when it comes to immigration, there has been a real backsliding on kind of questions of human rights, but also the rule of law. I mean, so Europe, the United States, etc., has made it very clear that when it comes to protecting the rights of non-citizens, whether that's at home in the domestic space or internationally, they're not going to adhere to international law. But increasingly, we're seeing they're not going to even adhere to their own laws. And I think this does lower the bar. It lowers the bar when Europe or others want Kenya or South Africa or others to take asylum seekers, because no one will have a sort of moral leg to stand on.
I suppose there are some dangers where if you send people to a country that perhaps is not deemed safe, that can't be allowed. And who's going to police that?
Yeah, I think that's the question. And then we're seeing like the United States sending asylum seekers or refugees or immigrants to South Sudan, which is a country that is rife with conflict. We're seeing people being sent to Eswatini, to a prison system, which is also questionable in terms of its human rights standards. And yeah, there's a question of who will do this. The UN, UNHCR, the High Commission for Refugees, in the past was very involved in monitoring this. Their funding has been cut 40-50% over the last year due to USAID and US government changes. So it's unclear, apart from civil society, apart from some of us who are watching these things, apart from the media, who will monitor this. But if we do see these outrageous activities, it's also unclear who we can go to try to address them.
Is there a place for asylum seekers to say, no, I refuse to be shipped off somewhere else, you have to take me in? That's what the law says.
Well, they can try. They can certainly try. Almost by definition, an asylum seeker, though, is someone who has lost the protection, the legal protections of one country. So they're always at the sort of the mercy of the country that they're trying to go to, that they're asking for asylum from. In the past, asylum seekers have taken lawsuits, often in collaboration with local NGOs. But we see asylum seekers, for example, on the islands that Australia's put them, being stuck there for years. We see asylum seekers in North Africa similarly being stuck for years, trying to make claims, trying to fight through the legal system. In law, in principle, they should be able to, but in practice, they are almost by definition an extraordinarily vulnerable group.
All right, I suppose as we conclude, going back to where we started, with Rwanda, I guess their case, as you hinted, there are very real costs that they've incurred that need to be compensated. So if nothing else, that is a starting point in terms of getting compensation.
Yeah, I think Rwanda will want this deal. Kagame will want not to be embarrassed and seen as being able to be kicked around by the UK or anyone else. But yes, I think we're starting to see the costs, both financial and moral, of the way in which Europe is managing migration.
Professor Landau, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you very, very much indeed. It's always a pleasure talking to you, getting your insights on these big issues.
Thank you.
And that was Professor Landau joining us to explain a little bit about this cancelled deal between Rwanda and the United Kingdom, where Rwanda is demanding compensation of £100 million after they had agreed that they would take some asylum seekers that had gone to the UK and bring them to Rwanda. But that's now fallen away.
Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Channel Africa is evolving, and so are you. Stay connected wherever you are with our brand new website and mobile app. Stream your favorite shows, catch up on African news, culture, and conversations, all at your fingertips.
Africa is just a tap away. Your world, your stories, now on the go. Stay connected wherever you are.
Visit channelafrica.co.za or download the Channel Africa app today. Channel Africa, the African perspective. New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Still to come on Rise and Shine, we look at South Africa's Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies. They are concluding a 3-day oversight visit to major state-owned entities in the province of Gauteng, and they'll be focusing on governance, financial management, and progress in programs aimed at expanding digital access and connectivity across the country. That's later on the show.
I'm going to take you back in time now. 1992. What were you doing in 1992, Asanda Beda?
I was in school. I was in Eduja village in school, Engubeto Lebam, JSS.
Wow.
Yeah, I can even remember the uniform. It was brown and gold.
Wow.
The school uniform.
1992. What was I doing? I was watching South Africa transition. I was watching the CODESA negotiations and talks, Mandela coming out of prison, and the whole story unfolding. It was quite a time. And then 94, I got to vote. And I'm going to tell you who I voted for that year. It was Nelson Mandela.
I think that vote is the one that everyone can actually share.
Yes, yeah,
but
absolutely.
after that, we all keep it a secret.
But meanwhile, Mauritania's first multi-party presidential election took place in 1992, following the adoption of a new constitution in 1991. Mauritania held its first multi-party presidential elections, and Maouya Ould Sid Taya became president.
Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Let's go to Malawi now, where the country is appealing for international assistance as severe flooding continues to displace thousands and claim lives across the country. At least 40 people have died, with critical infrastructure damaged and communities cut off, worsening an already fragile humanitarian situation. The floods come amid a deepening food crisis affecting millions. For more on this, we now speak to the Commissioner for Malawi's Department of Disaster Management Affairs, Wilson Muleni. Wilson, thank you for joining us. How are you?
Fine, and you?
We good, thank you very much. Let's start here. What's the current scale of the damage and the displacement, as well as the humanitarian need as flooding continues across Malawi?
So we've had floods in the central parts of Malawi, particularly in a district called Nkhotakota, where more than 10,000 households were affected, and about 2,000 households have been in camps in the Nkhotakota district. Damage has been massive, houses destroyed. Bridges were destroyed. They've just been restored, and cropland, huge area of cropland, more than 5,000 hectares of cropland has been damaged.
How is the damage impacting rescue efforts, and whether or not you are able to reach people in those districts that are mostly affected?
We're in a phase where these disasters happened actually at the end of December. So rescue, we are past rescue, and we currently decommissioning camps. Most of them have been decommissioned because we had 2,000 families in camps. But then we are in early recovery phase where the needs are big for the people. People need to return to places that are safe. Food is still needed. We must, but most importantly, at this point, are family tents, because most of the houses have been destroyed.
So what is the immediate support then that Malawi is seeking from international partners as part of making sure that rescue efforts are increased? You mentioned food is needed. People have lost their homes, so tents are also needed.
Yes, indeed. So those are the immediate needs. The food, and these people will take a bit of time to recover. So we need to support them with food for the next 3 months, and then the tents. But there are also other non-food items, the things that they need to use in their homes, the utensils that have been swept away. There are items that they use in their homes, various items. So basically, most of them have lost everything, and whatever people who can afford to assist our people start a life again is welcome.
Apart from that appeal to international partners, what has the Malawi's Department of Disaster Management Affairs managed in terms of responding to the crisis?
Yes, so we've been supporting the people with food, particularly. Since the disasters occurred, we've been giving them the maize, which is our staple food, to support them in the camps. And some local partners and international also have come forward to support with food items. A few tents have been secured, but we need more because the people affected are many.
Right, and also Malawi is experiencing food insecurity linked to the El Nino-induced drought. So how is that adding to the situation?
That is worsening the situation at the moment because the Malawi Vulnerability Assessment Committee did find out that 4 million Malawians are facing food insecurity. Following that, the state president, Professor Peter Mutharika, declared a state of disaster in all the districts, 28 and 4 cities. And we've been, and then we developed lean season food insecurity response program, and we've been distributing food every month to those that have been affected by this food insecurity. It's also a massive program with a gap of about $50 million at the moment. But we have secured some partners that are already supporting that program, and it's on track.
What about farming communities? I know you mentioned certain districts. I don't know if those will constitute some of those farming communities who obviously are a very big part of Malawi's economic activity. How are they affected?
The farming communities, particularly in areas that have been flooded, have been affected. They've lost the crops that they planted, and they've had to replant, and the rains don't come for a long period. So most likely these people are going to face another cycle of food insecurity because they've planted late. Some of them will not do any farming activities at all because they've just gotten out of camps. Some are still in camps. So we are seeing the food insecurity repeating itself in most parts of the country, particularly those that have been affected by floods.
Moving forward, how prepared is the country then to deal with these repeated climate-related disasters? There's also a lingering impact of Cyclone Freddy.
Yes, we had not yet recovered from Cyclone Idai effects when Cyclone Freddy hit the country, and we haven't recovered from Cyclone Freddy, and then we're also seeing these disasters. So climate change is hitting us badly as a country, and in terms of preparedness, we are working on resilience programs, particularly to deal with food insecurity, irrigation, to ensure that the food security is dealt with, particularly because most of our farmers are depending on rain-fed agriculture. So we want to promote more of irrigation farming. And flooded areas, we're also working with partners to have dikes across rivers. Some dikes have been built. But more importantly, we have strengthened our laws around disaster risk management. We have the Disaster Risk Management Act 2023 that discourages people from building in places that are prone to disasters, and some enforcement that is required. But we are working with partners on various resilience programs.
Right. Wilson, we'll leave it there for now. Thanks again for your time.
I appreciate it. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Great. Yeah. Wilson Muleni is from the Malawi's Department of Disaster Management Affairs. He's commissioner there. Time for news headlines now. Good morning to Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Malawi is appealing for international assistance as severe flooding continues to displace thousands and claim lives across the country. At least 40 people have died, with critical infrastructure damaged and communities cut off, worsening an already fragile humanitarian situation. Residents along the Bay Bridge borderline outside Masina in South Africa's Limpopo province are calling on the government to erect a wall in order to curb illegal cross-border activities. And US President Donald Trump has again threatened Iran with military action, pressuring the country to negotiate a deal on nuclear weapons. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Right, let's catch you up with the world of sport. Lots of Champions League football taking place in Europe last night. I think group of 16, Musabudi Makura. Good morning.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Peter. Very good morning from the sports desk. Indeed, many teams, by the way, having qualified for the last round of 16 in the UEFA Champions League last night. Liverpool being one of them, Arsenal getting a win as well, Manchester City also getting a win. So we'll get to reflect on those results in the next hour, just to sort of now let you know exactly how the round of 16 at the UEFA Champions League will be looking like. So I'll get to reflect on that in the next hour of Africa Rise and Shine. But for now, I'd like to, start our sports bulletin with this story that's dominating, news on the African continent. The Confederation of African Football Disciplinary Board imposing now sanctions on the Federation of Senegal as well as the Federation of Morocco and certain players and officials for the incidents during the Africa Cup of Nations 2025 final about 2 weeks ago, which violated the CAF disciplinary code. So CAF decided to suspend the coach of Senegal, Pape Thiaw, for 5 official CAF matches for his unsporting conduct in violation of the CAF disciplinary code principles of fair play as well as integrity and also bringing the game into disrepute. Thiaw was also fined $100,000. Also, CAF suspending a couple of players including Iliman Ndaya as well as Ismaila Sarr for 2 official CAF matches for their unsporting-like behaviour towards the referee. They've also decided to fine the Senegalese Football Federation $300,000 for improper conduct of its supporters, which brought the game into disrepute in violation of the CAF disciplinary code principles of fair play as well as integrity. At the same time, CAF also imposing a fine on the Moroccan Football Federation of about $200,000 for inappropriate behaviour of the stadium's ball boys during the match. They've also fined the federation $100,000 for improper conduct of the national team players and the technical staff who invaded the VAR review area and also obstructed the referee's work. At the same time, they've decided also to suspend players, including Achraf Hakimi, for 2 official CAF matches, with one of these matches being suspended for 1 year from the date of the decision for his unsporting-like behaviour. And also fined the federation $100,000. Rather, he was also fined $100,000 for his behaviour in that final. On to some tennis news now. Ben Shelton says he is not discouraged after losing in straight sets to Jannik Sinner in the Australian Open quarterfinals on Wednesday. Now, the 8th seed was beaten 6-3, 6-4 and 6-4, with Sinner breaking once in each set while holding serve throughout. So despite Shelton's powerful delivery, the 2-time defending champion extended his dominance over the American to 9 successive wins since their first meeting back in 2023. Now, Shelton, who also lost to Sinner in last year's semi-finals, insists he's close to bringing it all together as he now aims to join the elite in men's tennis. Back home now, the South African national netball team, the Small Proteas, will host England in an international netball challenge, which includes a 3-match series starting in Johannesburg today. Now, the series is quite crucial for the Proteas as they fine-tune their preparations for the 2027 Netball World Cup, Africa Regional Qualifiers in Kenya, as well as the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, Scotland later on this year. The Proteas head into the 2026 International Netball Challenge as African champions following a successful Africa Netball Cup campaign in Lilongwe, Malawi in December of last year. They now have the difficult test of taking on England, ranked 4th in the world. The squad assembled for camp just last week in Johannesburg for a 2-day training camp, and coach Jenny van Dijk says the players have to align with the game plan.
It's important for us to align within the camp and to make sure that all the players understand what we're working towards, what it is that our views is according to what we're playing against, and also how it fits in with our game plan.
All right, so the action will get underway later on today at the Ellis Park Arena in Johannesburg, right here in South Africa. It's match 1 of 3 between the Spar Proteas as well as the England Roses. And finally, Patrick Reed has announced he is leaving Live Golf, the series, to make a return to the PGA Tour. The 35-year-old who joined Live Golf in 2022 follows American compatriot Brooks Koepka in departing the lucrative Saudi Arabia-backed series. Now, Live Golf said they were not able to come to terms with Patrick on a potential contract extension, but were grateful for everything he contributed during his time with the series. Now, Koepka announced that he was leaving Live Golf in December and will return to the PGA Tour at this week's Farmers Insurance Open at Torrey Pines that tees off on Thursday. He is able to also play after the PGA recently introduced a new returning member program that allows for players who have been away from the PGA Tour for at least 2 years and have won the Players' Championship or a major between 2022 and 2025 to play again on the series, with the avenue closing on the 2nd of February. However, Reid, who is the 2018 Masters champion, does not meet those criteria, and the rules then dictate that he will not be able and not eligible to play on the PGA Tour until August, a year after his last live appearance. And that's a wrap from the sports desk at the Sawa. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, remember to send us an email. That's to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. I'm back with the final sports update on Africa Rise and Shine in the next hour. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Coming up on Rise and Shine, 53 countries on our continent of Africa have been rated in terms of their perceived risk when it comes to investment. It turns out, according to this particular UN analysis, that 33 are rated below investment grade and only 2 hold investment grade status. We'll figure out what that means for the future of Africa's credit profile.
Madapiri Bazoshitika. Madapiri Bazoshitika.
Madotolo oposa 1,500 amene amagwira ntchito yaulere mu zipatala zaboma mu dziko la Zambia azanyanyala ntchito lachisanu sabata ya mawa, ndipo Daniel Shabanda kutambasula nkhani.
Madotolo oposa 1,500 amene amagwira ntchito mopanda malipiro apamwezi dziko la Zambia akuyembekezera kuyamba kunyanyala ntchito. Ichi ndi chifukwa chakuti boma lalephera walemba ntchito monga mmene lidawalonjezera. Channel Africa News yalankhulana ndi mkulu wa bungwe la madotolo la Resident Doctors Association of Zambia, Dr. Paul Chiwe, akugomeza kuti madotolo ambiri amene akugwira ntchito mu zipatala zaboma akugwira ntchito yaulere, ndipo ali ndi chiyembekezo chakuti tsiku lina adzalembedwa ntchito ndi boma.
Zochitika pa nthawi ya 6 koloko kufikira 7 koloko madzulo, lolemba mpaka lachisanu ndi Madapiri.
Let's update you now with what's happening in the world of business, and here's Chandugo Ligege to give us that.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Chief Executive Officer of the International Credit Rating Agency in Zimbabwe, Ephraim Chawoneka, says current rating frameworks often fail to reflect the continent's true economic realities. This as a number of business professionals gathered at the launch of the African Credit Rating Association, ACRA, in Johannesburg this week. Chawoneka says the launch of ACRA is timely and will help ensure credit rating agencies have access to credible, Africa-focused information.
It is a fact that 33 countries out of the 54 are rated, and a very small percentage are in the investment grade. And that investment grade, we're talking about triple B. And you know there's an A, there's a double A, and a triple A on top of that. So essentially, what has been happening is that I think from when you read literature around credit ratings, particularly in Africa, you find that there is always an agreement that information is scarce.
South Africa's economy is gradually showing some positive growth. This came out of on day one of the extended Cabinet Lekgotla yesterday at the Sefako Makgato Presidential Guest House in Pretoria. The two-day gathering is called to discuss plans and priorities for the year, which include, among others, growing the economy and improving local government. President Cyril Ramaphosa and his deputy Paul Mashatile, ministers and their deputies, as well as the South African Local Government Association members, are attending the meeting. Minister in the presidency, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, says despite the country's challenges, the economy is on the mend.
We had a presentation from the Minister of Finance on the macroeconomic framework of the country, focused on what are the things that we have noticed last year. For instance, the cost of borrowing for the government of South Africa has reduced drastically. When we started with the budget last year, we started with over 13% cost of borrowing. Today, as we sit, we are at 9%, showing that our fiscal prudence and fiscal management is strengthening. We've seen a year-on-year 2.1% growth on the GDP over the same period. And also we have seen, in terms of the performance of the rand has stabilized. There are those who want to claim that it has stabilized because of the problems in the US. They've stabilized because of the fiscal management that the country is doing.
BMW South Africa CEO Peter van Bensberg says the country's automotive industry is not calling for steep hikes in vehicle import duties and instead wants targeted auto policy adjustments to support domestic manufacturing. He was responding to questions on remarks to Parliament by the country's International Trade Commissioner, flagging the gap between South Africa's 25% duty on imported vehicles and the 50% maximum rate allowed by the World Trade Organization. In the same parliamentary sitting, Deputy Trade Minister Zuko Godlimbi told lawmakers that his ministry is reassessing hiking tariffs on imported vehicles. Thousands of film and television workers are taking to the streets this week, warning that South Africa's film and TV industry is on the brink of collapse. A march took place in Cape Town yesterday, with another planned for today in Pretoria as part of the Save SA Film Jobs campaign. The coalition says the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition film and TV incentive system has stalled for almost 2 years, forcing productions to shut down and workers to lose jobs. Chairperson of Animation South Africa, Olile Vundla, explains.
As indicated, we had the first leg of the march at the parliamentary precinct yesterday. Today, the second leg takes our protest to the DTIC campus in Pretoria. This is a serious matter because the industry is on the verge of collapse. We're losing investor confidence in our market for film and TV production. The end consequence is a loss of jobs.
The electric car maker Tesla has experienced its first ever annual decline in revenue, closing a difficult year 3% down as the company lost ground to Chinese manufacturer BYD. Sales in Europe fell as consumers turned away over Elon Musk's ties to the Trump administration. The BBC's Lily Jamali has the details.
Tesla was once one of the world's most profitable car companies, but now it says profits dropped 61% in the final quarter of 2025 compared with the previous year. The electric vehicle company has struggled to keep up with China's BYD, and boss Elon Musk's foray into U.S. politics last year likely also dragged on the company's fortunes. Tesla plans to end production of its Model S and Model X vehicles as sales of both models have faltered, with the company shifting its focus to AI and robotics.
Financial indicators this morning: $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,398 naira, Botswana 13 pula 05, Kenya 128 shilling 205, Zambia 19 kwacha 69. BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 19, Russia 76 rubles 34, India 91 rupee 84, China 6 yuan 94, South Africa 15 rand 86 cents. $1 is 72 pence to the British pound and 83 to the euro. Commodities: gold is trading at $5,524, platinum at $2,739 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil at $69.20 a barrel. That's all for now. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email, newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chandruko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
7:46 Central African Time. Let's look at a United Nations Development Programme linked analysis now. This supported by African Business Research. So it suggests that Africa may be losing nearly $75 billion every year due to higher borrowing costs driven by perceived risk, often referred to as the Africa Risk Premium. Of the continent's 53 countries, 33 are rated below investment grade, while only 2 hold investment grade status. So what does this mean for the future of Africa's credit profile? Channel Africa's economics reporter Innocent Simosa unpacks and tries to answer that question.
Delegates attending the launch of the African Credit Rating Association, ACRA, are calling for a fairer and more accurate assessment of Africa's financial landscape. Ibrahim Chauneka, Chief Executive Officer of the International Credit Rating Agency, Zimbabwe, says current rating frameworks often fail to reflect the continent's true economic realities.
I think first and foremost, it is a fact that 33 countries out of the 54 are rated, and a very small percentage are in the investment grade. And that investment grade, we're talking about BBB. And you know there's an A, there's a double A, and a triple A on top of that. So essentially, what has been happening is that I think from when you read literature around the credit ratings, particularly in Africa, you find that there is always an agreement that information is scarce. There is asymmetry of information.
Chaunera says the launch of ACRA is timely and will help ensure credit rating agencies have access to credible, Africa-focused information.
Now, but when you talk to somebody who's sitting in a jurisdiction like myself, I will tell you that information is available. It may be in silos, in bits and pieces around. So when you have an association like ACRA, it is now amalgamating all that information for purposes of it being used, so that when the rating is done, all the information, all the contours of information, the nuances are picked.
But how can ACRA balance global standards with Africa's unique economic and development challenges? Narina Fessar, who represents the CFA Institute, shares her perspective.
I love that question. I want to go back to what I refer to almost as my Damascus moment around this topic almost 30 years ago, when I saw for the first time the rail map in Africa. And I noticed that all of the railroads in Africa, as it was 30 years ago, went from the mines to the ports. In other words, everything was about getting stuff out of this continent. And there was hardly any infrastructure that connected the continent inside, so these different rail systems. When they then started wanting to connect the rail system inside the continent, it was found that depending on who the original colonial master was, the gauges of these rail tracks could not be connected because the French and the British and the Portuguese, these tracks did not talk to one another. So you needed special connectors to even connect the existing rail infrastructure inside the continent. We've got exactly the same situation in terms of financial market infrastructure. All of our financial market is focused on capital flows out of the continent, trying to attract capital flows to come into the continent.
Dr. Nick Apple, representing the Future of Job Summit, says independent credit rating are critical to building credibility, boosting investor confidence, and shaping Africa's financial future.
Absolutely, and the timing could not be better, because the space where the world is right now favors Africa. It favors South Africa, and as the world is resetting, I think ACRA has a great opportunity to now bring all the credit rating agencies together and speak with one voice.
For Channel Africa News, I'm Innocent Samosa in Johannesburg, South Africa.
All right, stay with us. Coming up shortly, we'll be talking to the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Digital Communications and Technologies, Kusela Diko. Find out why.
Channel Africa is evolving, and so are you. Stay connected wherever you are with our brand new website and mobile app. Stream your favorite shows. Catch up on African news, culture, and conversations, all at your fingertips.
Africa is just a tap away. Your world, your stories, now on the go. Stay connected wherever you are.
Visit channelafrica.co.za or download the Channel Africa app today. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Today, South Africa's Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies is wrapping up a 3-day oversight visit in Gauteng province. The delegation has been engaging with key public entities responsible for media diversity, universal access programs, and national digital infrastructure, including the Media Development and Diversity Agency, MDDA, the South African Universal Service and Access Agency and Associated Fund, and also Broadband Infraco to assess governance, financial performance and progress on expanding digital access across the country. With us now is Ms. Kusela Diko, who's a Member of Parliament and Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies, to outline the committee's findings and what it sees as priorities for improving connectivity service delivery for all South Africans. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, and welcome. Always good to talk to you.
Good morning, Peter, and good morning to your listeners. Thank you so much for inviting us onto the program.
So tell us about this mission that you've been on and that you're concluding today. What are the key objectives of this oversight visit, and why does it matter for South Africa's digital future?
Thanks again, Peter. You know, I was laughing to myself as I was hearing you read those tongue twisters there. But you remember from our last conversation where you and I were at Startup 20 as part of the G20. That particular conversation referenced the fact that if indeed we're going to build an inclusive society in South Africa and indeed across the continent, we need to ensure that, our digital infrastructure is in place that would then allow us to catapult so many young people into the mainstream economy. So as Parliament, we decided to do an oversight visit, undertake an oversight visit to these entities that you mentioned. 3 separate entities of government, 3 different mandates, but I think that at the core of it, it's about universal access for everybody. So whether it is to broadcasting diversity of views through the Media Diversity Agency, the MDDA, whether it is through ensuring that underserved, particularly rural and township communities, do have connectivity, which is the mandate of the Universal Service Agency, and then Broadband Infraco, which is our fiber company, again, working together with USASA to ensure that we're able to bring connectivity to those areas where perhaps some of the commercial partners are not so much interested in. They're quite an interesting bundle, if I can put it like that, Peter. Firstly, because of their mandates, where we think that there's a lot of role clarification that needs to be done. I mean, when the Universal Service Access Fund, which forms part of one of the entities, was set up, the idea was that it would ensure that it puts in incentives, it facilitates the entry of, small businesses in building their own networks, supported obviously by your larger mobile network operators. That particular approach seems to not have worked as well as government would have wished. Hence, then they established Broadband Infraco, which is necessarily, the country's now a fiber network developer using, again, that Universal Service Access Fund. And another reason why we chose them is because we are worried about instability as it relates to leadership within these institutions. There's a lot of governance challenges, obviously, then lead, to a failure in the execution of mandate. You have many of them, or at least most of them, where boards have not been appointed for a long time, like the Universal Service Agency. You've had CEOs in acting roles since 2019 at the Universal Service Agency. The other two, while you do have the governance structures in place, MDDA is rocked with infighting between management and the board, between the staff and management. And Broadband Infraco is sitting in a position where their financial sustainability, I'll put it like that, is in question. So we'll be engaging with BBI today and obviously building on the insights around these institutions from there.
And getting these institutions right is vital, because they are a key in terms of this universal access story. And if they don't work, we don't get our dream.
We have absolutely no option but to get them right, Peter. And one of the biggest challenges I think the industry faces now, just being communications and digital technologies, has been, again, this issue of instability. And I mean, like, at the highest level, at ministerial level. I don't know how many ministers we've had just in the last, you look in the last 5-6 years, and you find that while Parliament would have passed laws, while there would be industry consensus on a vision and how we need to move to achieve what we need to, each minister comes in with their own priorities. So while you would have, as I was indicating, just using the example of USASA, you would have agreed that let's set up this fund, the mobile network operators contribute to it, and then as and when they need to go into certain areas, they can tap into this fund so that they don't deplete their resources trying to service what they deem, unviable constituencies. And the next minister will come in, and then that particular policy changes. Now suddenly you have government intervening in a way that makes us question, what was the market failure? Why did this particular approach not work? So we really trying to work with Minister Malatsi and say to him, when we went to the Universal Service Agency yesterday, for example, that entity was told in 2016 that it would be de-established, and what it did, it started operating as an entity that is waiting to be closed down any day. So they don't hire people, or in the event that they do hire, they're given short-term contracts. So there's no security of employment for those employees. You can't attract capable people to work at USASA because it's in this state of limbo. And we're saying this is 10 years down the line, nothing has happened. Can you give assurance to this entity that it exists until it doesn't? I mean, we know that you don't just wake up and dissolve an institution. It's going to take the next 5 years. Give them certainty, give them assurance, and tell them the mandate that they have is still relevant. It's still there in statute, and they should be implementing it. BBI, on the other hand, and I'm expecting to see exactly what we saw at USASA yesterday. BBI was told that they would be rationalized, they would be merged with Centec, which is the signal distributor. And again, you now have BBI that has moved into these offices of Centec. They get there, they feel like they're the poor cousin because they wouldn't have a balance sheet, for example, as Centec does. And all that is suffering is service delivery. All that is suffering are the employees of these institutions, because we are just refusing to have stability in our institutions, which for me is not understandable.
And that's where we're going to have to leave it. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but thank you so much for joining us, and continue with the good work. Our country and our citizens depend upon your success. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
That's Kusela Diko, MP and Chairperson of South Africa's Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies. It's 8 o'clock, which means it's time for your news with Onelen Sinsi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Malawi is appealing for international assistance as severe flooding continues to displace thousands and claim lives across the country. At least 40 people have died with critical infrastructure damaged and communities cut off, worsening an already fragile humanitarian situation. The floods come amid a deepening food crisis affecting millions. Malawi's Department of Disaster Management Affairs, Wilson Moleni, explains.
And these people will take a bit of time to recover. So we need to support them with food for the next 3 months. And then the tents, But there are also other non-food items, the things that they need to use in their homes, the utensils that have been swept away. There are items that they use in their homes, various items. So basically, most of them have lost everything, and whatever people who can afford to assist our people start a life again is welcome.
The head of South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal Province Priority Crime Investigations, the Hawks, Major General Leseja Sinona, has told the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry that he did not open documents sent to him by a controversial businessman Vusimuzi Matlala, including the identity of President Cyril Ramaphosa. Evidence before the Commission from Witness X states that Matlala sent General Sinona 3 different ID numbers allegedly belonging to the president. The Commission is probing allegations of criminality, corruption and political interference in the police and criminal justice system. Responding to evidence, leader advocate Adila Hassim Sinona says he doesn't know. He didn't ask Matlala why he sent him the documents.
You know, these documents, when I look at them now, because it's now that I see the contents, I would have reported this to my principal.
So you would have reported this to your principal?
Yes, because it is unusual that a private person can have these documents. So I didn't open them. I didn't know what was inside. But if I knew, commissioners, definitely I would have written an information note to my supervisor, informing him about this, what I've just discovered with a person of.
Residents along the Bed Bridge borderline outside Masina in South Africa's Limpopo province are calling on the government to erect a wall to curb illegal cross-border activities. They also say that a wall will help ease workload on law enforcement officers manning the Procos borderline. Incidents of confrontation between South African Defence Force members and suspected smugglers are often reported along the borderline. Philemon Munyai is from the Madimbo Business Forum.
The problem that we're facing here around Madimbo, Marare, Masisi, is the problem that those foreign nationals who cross Limpopo River illegally, so they continue to doing crime here. We request the government to make a permanent solution by building the wall to refrain them to come here simply so, because some of them they're criminals, some of them they're coming here with a lot of weapons.
The African Union Commission chairperson Muhammad Ali Yusuf has expressed concern about the current situation in South Sudan. The security is deteriorating in the East African country after violence broke out in Jonglei State. This has led to the displacement of large numbers of civilians. Kailisha Kumalo reports.
The African Union boss Mahmoud Ali Yusuf says he's gravely alarmed by reports of inflammatory rhetoric and actions that risk inciting further violence. He has called on all parties to exercise restraint, de-escalate tensions and comply with a peace agreement. The AU chief has urged South Sudanese stakeholders to place the interest of the people above all other considerations. The AU has reaffirmed its commitment in supporting Juba to achieve long-lasting peace, stability and reconciliation.
Lastly, U.S. President Donald Trump has again threatened Iran with military action, pressuring the country to negotiate a deal on nuclear weapons. Trump warned Iran that his possible next strikes would be far worse than those last June. Iran insists its nuclear program is entirely peaceful and warned that any U.S. attack would prompt a response like never before. The BBC's Helena Humphrey reports.
Donald Trump says that this is all about obtaining a nuclear agreement. Remember, in 2015, there was a nuclear accord which had been negotiated by the Obama administration. Instead, Donald Trump came into office. He promptly ripped up that agreement. This time around, he says he wants the Iranians to come to the table to make a deal that it's more stringent when it comes to the enrichment of uranium, and then also curbing the influence of Iran in the region.
Channel Africa News, I'm Onelin Tsinsi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, Liverpool, Spurs, Tottenham Hotspur, Barcelona, Chelsea, Arsenal, and as well as Manchester City among some of the teams that have qualified for the last 16 at the UEFA Champions League, as well as semi-final day at the Australian Open. Details of these and other stories coming up at 8:30.
From Africa's broadcast capital to the furthest corners of the globe, this is Rise and Shine, every weekday mornings on Channel Africa.
Seven minutes past 8 Central African time, but it's 5-2 Friday. We say on Rise and Shine. It is Thursday, the 29th of January. If you've just joined us, this is the third and final hour of the show. And thank you for waking up with us, Africa. We are Channel Africa, broadcasting from Johannesburg. That's where we are in terms of our live studios. You can connect with us on channelafrica.co.za, on the SABC Plus app via mobile phone, as well as live streaming on YouTube. At Channel Africa 1 is our handle, and that goes for our other social media platforms. My name is Asanda Beda, and I'm with...
You're with Peter Ndoro.
As
a very
usual.
happy Peter Ndoro, I must say, because after this hour, we'll be counting down to Friday. And
And month end.
Oh my goodness.
End of the week, end of the month.
January was long, hey?
Was it?
Those that are wealthy don't measure how long
busy,
January
or
is.
maybe we were just too tired to even count the days.
No, I think you're blessed, eh? So I'm going to be looking at an interesting subject, digital health, the state of digital health in South Africa. Now, as soon as I say that, you're probably thinking digital health as in the health of digital systems. Well, yes, that's true, but also the digital health of health systems, as it were. So we'll be taking a look at how hospitals and public hospitals communicate with each other, making sure that those digital systems in those health facilities are up to par.
I'll be going to Gabon, where teachers have downed tools in the country for about 6 weeks now. And one can imagine how school operations have been paralyzed as a result. We're busy starting a new year, and this is what they are facing in Gabon. We'll find out why and the reasons that they are refusing to report for duty.
Je, una jambo lolote akilini mwako? Je, una shauku kuhusu masuala muhimu? Na je, una maoni ambayo unataka yasikike? Kweli, hili jukwaa ni la kwako. Piga simu au tuandikie kwenda WhatsApp namba alama ya kujumulisha 2760552594 na tutakupigia simu.
Mtangazaji wa habari zetu za Afrika Kusini mjini Johannesburg.
Hivyo unaweza kuwa mshirika kwenye matangazo yetu. Sio mazungumzo tu, ni fursa yako ya kuchangia maoni yako na kushirikiana na jumuiya ya wasikilizaji wanaotamani mtazamo wako. Tufuate kwenye mitandao ya kijamii. Tembelea tovuti yetu www.channelafrica.co.za na uwe tayari kushiriki na kuchangia maoni yako kwenye Africa. Channel Africa, mtazamo wa Kiafrika.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Thousands of teachers in Gabon have been on strike for the past 6 weeks, paralyzing the school system. It marks the first wave of social unrest under the rule of President Brice Oligui Nguema, who seized power in a military coup in August 2023. The teachers are alleged to have been angered by a 10-year freeze on wages, Nhlanhla Mahlangu reports.
Teachers and civil servants in Gabon have been on strike less than a year after Brice Oligui Nguema's election over a long-standing wage freeze. Classes in Gabon remain suspended for the third consecutive week as teachers continue their strike action, according to local reports. The teachers' strike, which began on the 5th of January 2026, is a response to a range of unresolved issues, including pay and working conditions. Despite agreeing to negotiations via a mediator, the striking teachers have set preconditions for the resumption of classes. The collective behind the movement, which includes the National Union of Teachers, SENA, and the National Union of Technical and Vocational Teachers, and SOS Education, notably want the release of 2 union members imprisoned for supporting the strike. But while SOS Education has called for the resumption of classes, teachers are still staying away from school. The government has launched a fast-track review to clear salary arrears and status backlogs while resolving delays in appointments. It comes as the Education Ministry raised the budget from some $237 million in 2025 to $496 million for 2026. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Ndlandla Mahlangu in Johannesburg.
So let's discuss this further then, the education system of Gabon and how the teacher strike has crippled this system and how government is responding to this. We now speak to Ivan Desuli, who is member of Gabon Civil Society and General Secretary of a non-government organization called Avenir Africa. Ivan, thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning, Asanda. Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. Thanks for making time to shed light on this issue. Why have the teachers in Gabon decided to down tools? We understand the strike started on the 5th of January. There's also mention of a 10-year freeze on wages.
Yeah, exactly. The strike started officially on the 5th of January when the pupils and secondary school went back to school after a festive season. But they decided to go on strike even before that date. It was on the 19th of December when the school was going on holiday. So all the as you mentioned it, Sena, Konasi said, and SOS Education decided to give some demand to government so that they can resolve those issues. But the area in salaries, like for volunteer, didn't have been they haven't been taken from government, giving them some salaries, and for those new ones who come out from education school, so they've been affected to teach now. So there was a lot of demand that was being asking for many years already, and the teacher decided to put some demand on the table of the government, and the government didn't hear them at first. It's only when they went back to school when they restart school on the 5th of January that the thing gets a bit bigger, and the whole the country was going on strike. And government decided to take them seriously.
How much damage has been caused to the education infrastructure? We know that there's a strike, so the teachers haven't showed up, but has there been any physical damage to the actual infrastructure in schools? And this is marking also the first major unrest since the 2023 coup. So what does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. There was no damage on school infrastructure, not at all. No one. There's no striker was only at the pickets. They just singing and not attending classes. That's the only thing that they were doing. Or even those teachers didn't went to school at all. That was there was how do you call it, Ville mode, or if I call it like that. There was no one at school, no teachers and no pupils even. And as you mentioned it, that was the first front, social front that the president is having after the coup in 2023, and the election when he was elected in April last year. That's the first challenge that he's having for against national strike. Even national strike is not only on teachers. Many departments, public departments, are going on strike now. And I think that the government and the president himself, they must take those things seriously. Recently, last week, he received the Department of Health, those people working, those workers from the Department of Health. He received from higher education as well. And we're talking about the oil sector. So many departments are going on strike. Even the national television is on strike. So there's a challenge that is having a social front challenge, and the president must take those problems seriously for him to not having much trouble. That's what we are. That was a reason even there was like a coup in 1993 because the previous government was not taking taking those problems that were public sector seriously. There was a lot of the government, like public worker, was having a lot of demands, and the government was not taking them seriously. So that the new government must like address those problems, must address those demands, and try to find solution for them.
So on that point, then, as you mentioned, talks between government and unions failed. Government is not really taking unions seriously. So how much of a role do they play then in terms of the power they yield to be heard, these unions in the country?
Yes, but for union, as you mentioned on your report, like for the education, education sector, they have been on strike for like since the 5th of January. It's been like more than 3 weeks already. So after that, and when kids are not going to school, me as a parent even, not seeing kids going to school is affecting the whole nation. Seeing like the worker, like national worker, teachers, and so on, not receiving salaries, for those teachers are also parents even. They can't even put food on the table for the kids and so on. They can't give like medical attention to the family when they are sick and so on. Those challenges affecting the whole nation at all. Because when we talk about education, it's not about teachers only. It's about like the whole country. It's the future of a country that we're preparing. If the future of a country is not taken seriously, it's a big problem for the nation at all.
Besides the wage issue, there are preconditions reportedly set by the teachers before they return to work. What are they, and what are the likelihoods of these being adhered to by government?
Yeah, there was a pre-salary for like for new teachers. There was arrears in salary for those who have been teaching for like 5-10 years without having proper salaries. There was like for volunteers in the education sector as well who are not taken like who are not having any salaries. So that was the first demand. We're talking about also infrastructure at school. There was like school where there's no blackboard. There was school where teachers have 100 pupils in one classroom, where the kids are sitting on the floor, one receiving one attending classes. So there's those issues, like a work condition for teachers and for the whole system, education system that the government must take on, must like address and must give solution for that. Yes, now we are, now it's a school time. Yes, maybe you won't be able to have new classes and so on. But for next year, for next academic year, those problems must be at least have a small solution. So you can't have now 100 pupils in one classroom. Kids can't sit on the floor when attending school. Those kind of problems must be addressed by the government. And as we've been talking, for salaries of our government, for salaries of workers, I mean teachers, and those who are not taking, those who are not having salaries, those problems must be resolved. And the integration in the public system, even those problems must be resolved by the government for that, so that those the union who are demanding for the point to be resolved can find solution, and so that things can go back to normal.
But how does the government justify a 10-year-long wage freeze? I mean, that's unheard of, especially in an essential section like education, where you go to work for a whole 10 years, you never get an increase in that entire time. And I know there's an overlap of governance because the military took over in 2023. What are they saying are the reasons that there would be this wage freeze for this long, 10 years?
Yeah, the government saying that that's what they inherited for previous government. But even so, like the new government has been in power for 3 years already. So yes, let's say that was like during Ali Bongo time when there was a lot of things that was not done properly. And those teachers was maybe those who were from like the previous government. I mean, Ali Bongo system, that he didn't take care of them. But now, after 3 years in power, those problems must be resolved. Just by last year, military received an increase on their salaries. I mean, like big militaries, like officers and so on, they receive increase in their salaries. And the essential sector as education, health department, those departments must have a special address. If you want your country to go to go in a big stand to do better things for your population to be healthy and so on, you must put an accent to those departments. That's really important. That's a core of a nation. And the government has to address those problems to make sure that the whole country, the whole population can be happy and can be at ease, so that things can be can go on a normal way.
Thank you so much, Ivan. We'll leave it there for now. Absolutely, it has to be resolved, this matter, because education is very important. That sector cannot be left to be this vulnerable, particularly this stage of the year. So thank you for your insights.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Our pleasure. Ivan Desoli is member of Gabon Civil Society and General Secretary of the NGO Avenir Africa, talking about teachers having down tools there in Gabon.
Africa. It's time to plug into the heartbeat of the continent. Tune in to Channel Africa, your go-to radio station that broadcasts in 5 different languages.
L'Afrique du Sud célèbre la journée nationale du
Kabla hujaitwa kwa jina la Double K, or more of our forests have been destroyed.
Partido Africano da Independência da Guiné.
See, Channel Africa represents every corner of this amazing land. From Lagos to Cape Town, Nairobi to Dakar, we've got you covered with the freshest news, music, and cultures. So, turn up the volume, feel the rhythm. Enjoy the conversation. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
South Africa's Department of Health, in partnership with the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, the CSIR, is currently hosting its first 3-day digital health interoperability projectathon as part of an ongoing effort to enhance the effectiveness and efficiency of digital health platforms to create a resilient and equitable healthcare system. Now, the event, which began on Monday in the country's capital, Pretoria, serves as a hands-on technical testing session to improve the South African digital health infrastructure. Let's take a look at what the story is with Sisi Sechalo.
Interoperability simply refers to the ability of different systems, devices or applications to work together seamlessly and exchange information effectively. In health, this can assist to achieve better health outcomes. The 3-day summit, which was held in South Africa, was looking at testing interoperability of health systems. The Director General in the Department of Health in South Africa, Professor Nicholas Crisp, explains what that means.
There are many digital systems that are used by different providers in hospitals, private practices, primary healthcare clinics, government, private, and so forth. And they need to be able to exchange information seamlessly between one another so that when you and I as a patient move between different parts of the health system, public or private, we go from a GP to a hospital or we go from a clinic to a hospital, our health records are available to the providers in the other space that we go to. So we need the systems to be able to share that data so that we as individuals are getting the best possible care, that we are not duplicating laboratory tests, we are not duplicating radiology tests, and also as a security measure that our data is very secure behind lots and lots of what we call firewalls, and yet is still available to the providers who are looking after us.
The Council for Scientific and Industrial Research has been working with the country's National Department of Health on the technical aspects of ensuring that the health systems can interoperate, which simply means work in conjunction with each other. CSIR Acting Executive Cluster Manager, Next Generation Enterprises and Institutions, Matthew Chetty, says they started around 2013-2014 with establishing the standards, the rules that must be followed for systems to be able to interoperate with each other. The standards were gazetted in 2014. Chetty adds that by virtue of the standards becoming available, it provided a set of guidelines for the different health information systems to comply with to ensure that they can actually exchange information in a useful way. Chetty elaborates further on what their role has been.
We've also worked with the department to revise the standards, which were then published again in 2022. And then you also need to make sure that the different systems are actually complying with the standards and the rules that have been set. So that's where interoperability testing comes in. So the CSIR has also worked with the Department of Health to establish the testing platform that we use to test these systems. We've developed the test cases based on specific health use cases in the country. And we've also worked with the different system owners to make sure that their systems actually comply to the technical standards. So this testing event is really a place where the different system owners can come together. The technical people can look at their code that they are using in their systems to see where it does comply with the standards and where some improvements are required. And the CSIR is here to assist those system vendors to make sure that improvements in the code are effective in such a way that they can comply with the standards. And the testing platform then allows us to conduct the tests to see whether systems do indeed comply, in which case they will pass, or whether there's still work that needs to take place, in which case they will fail. But we are here to help them to actually get to compliance.
A non-profit organization, IHE Catalyst, which has worked internationally in the area of interoperability, has been brought in to assist South Africa with their expertise. Global Standards Director in the organization, Eugen Brandstatter, has expressed that their mission is to provide the standards and to make the standards accessible and deployable so that it can really be used in health information exchange projects. Brandstatter explains their work in other countries.
In Europe, for example, we have a very strong momentum now into this direction, and we also use the same concept there. We have the same in Latin America. They have recently, like 4 years ago, they established the Pan-American Highway for Digital Health, where they want to connect the Latin American countries to each other. So we see that happening everywhere. Also, of course, in different countries like Canada, Switzerland, USA, and so on. And South Africa is now walking in the same footsteps. So they are one of the first, but like pretty much, where you go into this same concept. What we see with this method of bringing everyone together in a country in a very inclusive way, which is done here and which we have also done in the other parts I mentioned, has the advantage that we have all the expertise of everyone who has a role in the health information exchange in one place.
For Channel Africa, I'm Sisi Sekhalo in Pretoria, South Africa.
Right, it's 8:30, which means it's time to find out what's happening in your news headlines. And giving us that information is our one and only Onele Nsinsi. It's 8:30.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Nigerian police used tear gas yesterday to disperse Makoko residents protesting the demolishing of their homes in Lagos, an operation that has displaced thousands in one of Africa's largest floating informal settlements. Retired Judge President Bernard Ngobe in South Africa has been appointed to lead a 4-member board of inquiry to investigate whether or not the South African Defence Force ignored President Ramaphosa's instructions regarding the participation of Iran in the exercise Will for Peace 2026. And Colombia's aviation authorities say there are no survivors from a commercial flight which crashed near the Venezuelan border. The plane was carrying 15 people. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nsinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Time now to check in with what's happening in the world of sports. And we say good morning to Musibudi Makura for that update.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you so much, Asanda. Very good morning from the sports desk. So Liverpool stormed into the Champions League last 16 with a 6-0 thrashing of Qarabağ at Anfield last night. So it was Alexis McAllister who struck twice, with Florian Wirtz as well as Mohamed Salah, Hugo Ekitike and Federico Chiesa also on target, as the Reds secured third place in the league phase and eased pressure on boss Arne Slot. So despite losing Jeremy Frimpong to injury and fielding two midfielders in defence, Liverpool dominated that encounter. McAllister as well as Wirtz also put them 2 up midway through the first half before the opponents' attacking approach left them exposed to counters as well as high turnovers. Slots is happy that they've qualified for the last 16.
And so we're happy that we are going straight away to the last 16, especially because it's only 2 years ago that we were playing Europa League and we went out in the quarterfinals against Atalanta. So 2 seasons in a row now, being at the last 16, and this season, as we were last season, we were very hungry for more. We will definitely be hungry for more this season as well.
Well, we'll stay with the UEFA Champions League rather. Arsenal sealed a top spot in the Champions League phase with a 3-2 victory over Kirat Almaty, completing a perfect record. Mikel Arteta's made about 11 changes, handing Kai Havertz his first competitive start in 358 days. The German quickly made an impact, setting up Victor Gyökeres for a second-minute opener just before scoring himself. Meanwhile, Tottenham Hotspur booked their place in the Champions League last 16 with a 2-0 victory at Eintracht Frankfurt. Randall Kolo Muani, fresh from a minor car accident a day before, struck against his former club just 2 minutes after the halftime break. Substitute Dominic Solanke sealed the result with a 77th minute finish. Erling Haaland, meanwhile, ended his 5-game goal drought as Manchester City beat Galatasaray of Turkey by 2-0 to reach the Champions League last 16, with Real Madrid, Paris Saint-Germain as well as Newcastle slipping out elsewhere. City secured a top 8 finish and eased the tension at the Etihad. On to some cricket news now. South Africa's under-19 fast bowler Michael Kroeskamp has expressed disappointment at just how their World Cup campaign has gone and says they have let themselves down at this year's tournament. So South Africa have only one victory to their name at the competition, which is being held in Namibia as well as Zimbabwe. That win came on match day 2 against Tanzania, with the loss to Australia and the Super Sixers sealing their fate. Their match against Sri Lanka later on this morning is now a dead rubber with no chance of making the semi-finals, and Kroeskamp says they just didn't come to the party in Zimbabwe.
I think we definitely had a lot of areas to improve. I think we didn't play to our potential. So obviously it's not our best tournament. We're a bit disappointed with how we've performed. So so definitely not too pleased with how it's gone. Personally, I mean, obviously lots of areas that I could have improved on, so also just wish I could have done a little bit better.
So the action gets underway at the Harare Sports Club at 9:30 a.m. Central African time in that match between South Africa as well as Sri Lanka. Tennis news now. Ben Shelton says he's not too discouraged after losing in straight sets to Yannick Sinner in the Australian Open quarterfinals. The 8th seed was beaten 6-3, 6-4 and 6-4, with Sinner breaking once in each set while holding serve throughout. Despite Shelton's powerful delivery, the 2-time defending champion extended his dominance over the American to 9 successive wins since their first meeting in 2023. Shelton, who has also lost to Sinner at last year's semi-finals of this Australian Open, insists he's close now to bringing it all together and has now aims to join the elite in the men's tennis game. And finally, in case you missed it, Patrick Reed, now the latest golf player to leave the Live Golf Series and makes a return to the PGA Tour. The 35-year-old who joined Live Golf in 2022 follows American compatriot Brooks Koepka in departing the lucrative Saudi Arabia-backed series. Now, Live Golf said they were not able to come to terms with Patrick on a potential contract extension, but was grateful for everything he contributed during his time with the series. Now, Koepka announced in December of 2025 that he is leaving Live Golf and will return to the PGA Tour at this week's Farmers Insurance Open at Torrey Pines, but tees off later on today. He's also able to play in the PGA Tour. Recently introduced a new training and returning member program. It allows players who have been away from the PGA Tour for at least 2 years and have won the Players' Championship or a major between 2022 and in 2025 to play again on the series, with the avenue closing on the 2nd of February. However, for Reed, who was champion of the Masters back in 2018, does not meet those criteria, and the rules then dictate he will not be eligible to play on the PGA Tour until August of this year, a year after his last Live appearance. It's exactly 8:37 a.m. Central African Time. It's a wrap of your sports news this morning on Africa Rise and Shine. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, do send us an email, firstly to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Alternatively, call us. The newsroom line is +27 11714 4459. I'm back with more sports news with the On The Move team in the next hour. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Mosibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Coming up shortly, we're going to be tackling an interesting story. A historical place called Makoko is under threat of demolition in Nigeria, and it's quite symbolic and tells a real story of the history of Lagos, and the people living there saying that it's an injustice, and we'll be unpacking that story for you.
As the sun rises on 2026, Channel Africa celebrates with you. This year, may prosperity flow like water. May unity strengthen our nations. And may every African story inspire the world.
Channel Afrique vous accompagne dans cette célébration. Que l'espoir illumine notre continent.
Que as vozes de África ecoem com orgulho.
From all of us at Channel Africa, we wish you and yours a joyful, successful, and prosperous 2026.
Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Oh, right. I forget where I am sometimes. Let me catch you up. It's time to listen to the business news. And at the desk this morning is Chanduko Lugege. Very good morning.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. Chief Executive Officer of the International Credit Rating Agency in Zimbabwe, Ephraim Chawaneka, says current rating frameworks often fail to reflect the continent's true economic realities. This as a number of business professionals gathered at the launch of the African Credit Rating Association, ACRA, in Johannesburg this week. Chawanera says the launch of ACRA is timely and will help ensure credit rating agencies have access to credible, Africa-focused information.
It is a fact that 33 countries out of the 54 are rated, and a very small percentage are in the investment grade. And that investment grade, we're talking about BBB. And you know there's an A, there's a double A, and a triple A on top of that. So essentially, what has been happening is that I think from when you read literature around credit ratings, particularly in Africa, you find that there is always an agreement that information is scarce.
South Africa's economy is gradually showing some positive growth. This came out on day one of the extended Cabinet Lekgotla yesterday at the Sefako Makgatho Presidential Guest House in Pretoria. The two-day gathering is called to discuss plans and priorities for the year, which include, among others, growing the economy and improving local government. President Cyril Ramaphosa and his deputy Paul Mashatile, ministers and their deputies, as well as the South African Local Government Association members are attending the meeting. Minister in the presidency Khumbudzo Ntshavheni says despite the country's challenges, the economy is on the mend.
We had a presentation from the Minister of Finance on the macroeconomic framework of the country, focused on what are the things that we have noticed last year. For instance, the cost of borrowing for the government of South Africa has reduced drastically. When we started with the budget last year, we started with over 13% cost of borrowing. Today, as we sit, we are at 9%, showing that our fiscal prudence and fiscal management is strengthening. We've seen a year-on-year 2.1% growth on the GDP over the same period. And also we have seen, in terms of the performance of the rand has stabilized. There are those who will want to claim that it has stabilized because of the problems in the US. They've stabilized because of the fiscal management that the country is doing.
BMW South Africa CEO Peter van Bensbergen says the country's automotive industry is not calling for steep hikes in vehicle import duties, but instead wants targeted auto policy adjustments to support domestic manufacturing. He was responding to questions on remarks to Parliament by the country's International Trade Commissioner, flagging the gap between South Africa's 25% duty on imported vehicles and the 50% maximum rate allowed by the World Trade Organization. In the same parliamentary sitting, Deputy Trade Minister Zuko Gotlimpi told lawmakers that his ministry is reassessing hiking tariffs on imported vehicles. Thousands of film and television workers are taking to the streets this week, warning that South Africa's film and TV industry is on the brink of collapse. A march took place in Cape Town yesterday, with another planned for today in Pretoria as part of the Save SA Film Jobs campaign. The coalition says the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition's film and TV incentive system has stalled for almost 2 years, forcing productions to shut down and workers to lose jobs. Chairperson of Animation South Africa, Olile Vundla, explains.
As indicated, we had the first leg of the march at the parliamentary precinct yesterday. Today, the second leg takes our protest to the DTIC campus in Pretoria. This is a serious matter because the industry is on the verge of collapse. We're losing investor confidence in our market for film and TV production. The end consequence is a loss of jobs.
The electric car maker Tesla has experienced its first ever annual decline in revenue, closing a difficult year 3% down as the company lost ground to Chinese manufacturer BYD. Sales in Europe fell as consumers turned away over Elon Musk's ties to the Trump administration. The BBC's Lily Jamali has the details.
Tesla was once one of the world's most profitable car companies, but now it says profits dropped 61% in the final quarter of 2025 compared with the previous year. The electric vehicle company has struggled to keep up with China's BYD, and boss Elon Musk's foray into U.S. politics last year likely also dragged on the company's fortunes. Tesla plans to end production of its Model S and Model X vehicles as sales of both models have faltered, with the company shifting its focus to AI and robotics.
Financial indicators at this hour. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,398 naira. Botswana 13 pula 05. Kenya the dollar is 128 shilling 205. In Zambia 19 kwacha 69. BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 19. In Russia 76 rubles 34. India 91 rupee 84. China 6 yuan 94. South Africa the dollar is at 15 rand 86 cents. $1 is trading at 72 pence to the British pound and 83 to the euro. Commodities: gold is trading at $5,529, platinum at $2,765 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil at $69.30 a barrel. That is all for now. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chandruko Ligege.
business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
South Africa's economy is showing early signs of positive growth, officials said at the start of the extended cabinet meeting in the capital, Pretoria. The two-day meeting brings together ministers, their deputies, provincial premiers and members of the South African Local Government Association to discuss the government's priorities for the year, including boosting the economy and improving local government. President Cyril Ramaphosa and Deputy President Paul Mashatile presided over the gathering. Our politics reporter Ntebo Mukobo was there and filed this report.
Despite the stubbornly high unemployment rate, poverty levels and the sluggish growth, government says the economy is on the mend, as Minister in the Presidency Khumbudzo Ntshavheni explains.
We had a presentation from the Minister of Finance on the macroeconomic framework of the country, focused on what are the things that we have noticed last year. For instance, the cost of borrowing for the government of South Africa has reduced drastically. When we started with the budget last year, we started with over 13% cost of borrowing. Today, as we sit, we are at 9%, showing that our fiscal prudence and fiscal management is strengthening.
The minister also refuted claims and suggestions that the improved economic performance could be attributed to the challenges faced by the United States, insisting that credit should go to government's relentless work to turn the country's economic hardships around.
We've seen a year-on-year 2.1% growth on the GDP over the same period. And also we have seen, in terms of the performance of the rand has stabilized. There are those who want to claim that it has stabilized because of the problems in the US. No, they've stabilized because of the fiscal management that the country is doing. So we've looked at that and said, then what becomes the fiscal envelope that we're going to then prioritize and fund? So we are discussing those.
Minister Ntshavheni also said after the IMF's showing of appreciation of the steady growth and upwardly revising its growth projections, this spells that the country is on course to meet its National Development Plan objectives of halving poverty and unemployment by 2030.
Our ambition to achieve the 3% growth by end of the term is possible. We have been seeing a revision upwards by the IMF continuously, even when we went to the MTBPS, and also now they've done again another upward revision. It is very bolstering for a government in terms of our confidence and our ability to proceed. Equally, Stats SA in December released a report that has shown that even though we have not eliminated poverty, we have started to chip away on the levels of poverty in the country. There's been an improvement. So therefore, in terms of our targets for the NDP, we are on course. So that is progress, and that's what encourages us as we gather to have this conversation.
And as the country celebrates the 30 years of the adoption of the Constitution, Minister Ntshavheni said it would be up to South Africans to dialogue on whether their constitution, which is revered as the best in the world, still serves its purpose, with so many South Africans trapped in poverty and living in fear of criminality.
In the country, we are going to undergo the national dialogue that is going to communities. If South Africans are saying the current constitution as it is doesn't work for them, they will propose that amendments must be done. We continuously through Parliament call for the proposals for amendments of various sections of the constitution, and South Africans debate. But we are undergoing a national dialogue process that we must discuss this beautiful constitution of ours. Does it still remain beautiful, and is it beneficial for South Africans given the revolving situation that we have? And South Africans will make that determination, and as a government elected by the people of South Africa, will have to respond.
The Cabinet Lekgotla ends on Thursday, and its outcomes will form the basis of President Cyril Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address scheduled for the 12th of next month. I am Ntebo Mukobo in Pretoria.
Okay, have you ever heard of Makoko? That's literally an informal settlement in Lagos that's built on water, and we're going to be finding out why a lot of demolition is taking place there at the moment and why so many inhabitants are concerned. It's pretty iconic in many ways, historic, but development is happening on the one hand, and these informal settlements are the victims. We'll be unpacking that shortly.
The whole population of Africa has been shocked to the depth of its soul.
For 60 years, Channel Africa has been the voice that connects the continent, telling our stories and sharing our vision with the world. This year, we mark 6 decades of broadcast excellence.
60 years of stories, sound, and connection.
6 years of African conversations that matter.
This is 60 years of broadcast excellence.
Broadcast excellence, rooted in Africa's heartbeat and looking boldly into the future. Join Channel Africa as we celebrate 60 years of broadcasting. Still strong, still vibrant, and still giving you the African perspective.
Channel Africa.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Following Rise and Shine on Channel Africa is On the Move, and joining us is Palesa to tell us what to expect on this Thursday's edition. Good morning.
Good morning. Interesting one. Have you ever heard of a naked house, naked household?
That's interesting.
No.
Is that naturist people who don't wear
No,
clothes
not
at home?
really. It's just, you know what? I think we've had a very strange relationship now with the naked body. And I mean, historically as African
Yes,
people,
yes.
it wasn't, we've had religious influences, colonial
Yes,
influences in
yes.
how we observe the body. And in some homes, people just walk around, like the parents, the children can just walk around freely naked without observing the body as sexual or sexualizing the body. And that's a naked household where, everyone in the house grows up and, interacts. Everyone is naked. Maybe the children and the parents don't have to close the door when they're getting out the shower. Anyone can come in and out as they please, and nobody's really afraid of being naked.
So they've taken the concept of nudist beaches to another level now.
No, I don't think it's a
just-
concept
it's
at
just-
all. It's just, it's not a concept. It's just that,
What is it?
you know what? For example, my best friend, right? My best friend, I'd go and visit her at her house. At her house, my best friend walks out the bathroom through the living room to go to her bedroom. Her father's there, her parents are there, her
You're
siblings are there,
joking.
and she can just walk in. If her father needs something and she's in the bathroom, I'm in here and you can come in and out. And it's just freedom. It's just a household where people are free. It's not a concept and it's not a new thing either. Some
No,
people
no.
just love to be
You know
naked
what?
in their homes
What I know for
and free.
sure.
What do you call it then? What is it? If
A lot of white people do that. It's not
It's
a
a
big
naked
thing.
household.
But for black people, we have cultural issues that are problematic for that kind of thing to happen.
Which is very
and
crazy because
biblically
we,
as well, it's a
traditionally
problem
we
as
were
well.
not,
Yeah,
we didn't have a
it'll
problem
never-
Yeah.
going nude.
It's really, really difficult.
So we're going to look at that, right? What happens in these homes and how actually having a naked household.
Yeah, so you'd call it a lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, you can call it a lifestyle
It's just a
because
lifestyle.
it's not intentional. It's not like, in my household, I'm going to be naked. It's just how things are here. And in every house, things that are normal might not be normal in your house,
Yeah.
but they're normal in my house.
That's
Okay.
fascinating. Not in my house.
Because it's
I'll
not a
tell you that.
tradition. So
Not-
I'd call it
No,
a
it's not a
lifestyle.
Not in my house.
So we're going to be looking that in the
Interesting
first
there.
hour of the
That's
show.
coming up then on The Move with Benjamin Mushatama and Palesa Tau.
Your life, your rhythm, your Africa. Channel Africa. Find it for free on Google Play and the Apple App Store.
Right, let's go to West Africa and Nigeria, where police have used tear gas to break up protests in the Lagos waterfront community of Makoko after state authorities moved to demolish homes in one of Africa's largest informal settlements built on water. The operation has left thousands displaced, drawn renewed attention to the tension between urban development housing rights and the treatment of low-income communities across fast-growing African cities. Well, to help us understand what's happening on the ground, the legal and human rights implications, and what this means beyond Nigeria, we're now joined by Jude Ojo, who's a human rights lawyer and coordinator of the Nigeria Slum and Informal Settlement Federation, supported by Justice and Empowerment Initiatives. Jude, thanks very much indeed for joining us. For people who don't know much about Makoko, what makes this community unique, and why has demolishing it become a symbol of a housing crisis generally? Hello, Jude, are you there? Okay, looks like we may have lost Jude Ojo, but this is a fascinating story, and if we can't get him today, I really want us to try again to get him on the line tomorrow and have a chat with him, because you're seeing this kind of thing happening in societies across the world, actually, and it's called gentrification. And so what would happen is that there are parts of the city that were accessible to lower income groups, and as time has passed, those that are wealthy want to occupy that land because it is at a preferable location. And so they're starting to buy up this land and demolishing the informal or the lower incomes types of buildings, and building high level and powerful skyscrapers, luxury apartments, and that kind of thing. And then, of course, the people that used to live there disappear out of the system and can't afford to be in that area anymore. London is a really good example of that, where south of the river used to be the preserve of middle class and lower income people, but just south of the Thames now, a lot of that area, because it overlooks the Thames, has been bought up by rich people, and that is the gentrification. And we see it in a lot of cities across the continent as well. And sadly, this is what's happening to Makoko in Lagos, and we'll unpack that story hopefully tomorrow, because we're unable to get him on the line at the moment. I'm going to ask our ladies here, what do you guys think about gentrification, where you have a suburb, because of its locality, let's say in Johannesburg, for example, you've got Houghton on the one side, and then you've got Yeovil on the other, or Yeovil.
Yeovil, yeah.
Because of pressure of land, and because it might have a good view, you start seeing Yeovil being demolished and building these really, really expensive houses, and the people that used to live there can't afford to stay.
Yeah, I think it's happened a lot also in the Johannesburg CBD, but I don't know how far that went in terms of the uptake and interest from people wanting to invest in property there. But they demolished those old buildings, started afresh, and had these beautiful apartments, and that were renting out for higher prices. And for a while, there was a wave of people buying into that. Yeah. So I think it's rapid urbanization as well, and not so great town planning. Those are the things that I would say contribute to why we see that gentrification happening.
Cape Town's another area where that's happened a lot, hasn't it?
Look, there's two sides to every coin, and there have been quite a lot of positives to gentrification, like increasing the economy, etc. But of course, usually at sometimes moving up, it leaves behind those a lot of people who are really at the bottom of the economy, essentially. So it can be good for the economy at large, but not so great if you're not economically empowered.
And Cape Town's a good example, because you've got the mountain, you can't move it, and everyone wants a view of the mountain. And then you've got those there's that coloured area where the buildings are all painted, multicoloured and so. That is a real target, but there's a culture and a history that goes back many, many years that's part of that. And eventually what you're going to see is that's going to get bought up, because there's just nowhere else to build now.
I wonder in Makoko, though, how they'll do it, because that's literally a city on land, on water.
Well, that's what makes it
infrastructure, do they even have that?
Well, but that's what makes it prime, because then you've got the waterfront that people want to pay for, that view, and they don't want to see slums.
And the clearing of that?
Yeah, well,
because that's become a bit of slums.
No, technologies. Venice is the whole story.
They want to take on that colossal role of clearing that area.
Anyway, that's where we say goodbye. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. I'm Peter Ndoro.
And I'm Asanda Beda. We'll catch you tomorrow, 6 a.m. Central African Time.
We hand over to Rise and Shine's sister on the move.
Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
Good morning. It's time for On the Move right